just take out the little guy because I know how to work with him. Yeah, to figure out.
The students are coming at 6, if that makes sense.
Okay. Not a worry. Okay. And I'm having a major system update right now on my little things. Well, I have my big one, but it won't let me log in with my password, but this one will. Sure, just to see if it comes up faster. Okay, I'll wait for Chris to come back.
System update right now.
You just hate that they just decide when they're gonna happen. Oh, and I have like no battery life. Let's see if I can. This one is saying I have no batteries, so maybe. Yes,
This one fully charged it today. So
did you? I don't know my board.
Nothing like it.
Do it quickly. That's what I was trying to say.
No, there's just one over there.
It's, yeah, that one back in the corner. We'll get started momentarily. Is this yours? Actually, it's okay, Becky. This one doesn't log me in. So it did. It's got all my stuff, so that's it. I'll just leave this here. Someday I'll go to the big one. Okay, so gavel us in. Welcome, visitors. And let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Trustee Irons, are you still with us?
Yes, I am. Can
Okay.
you hear me?
I can hear you. Thank you. So we do have a quorum of the board. So we'll go ahead and proceed. Trustee Bain, can you read the mission statement, please?
Certainly. The Lakewood Joint School District Board of Trustees is an elected body of community members committed to serving with honesty and integrity, nurturing a relationship of trust. We hear the voice of our constituents and represent the views of our district. We provide oversight of taxpayer funds through fiscal accountability. We govern through developing, upholding, and advancing policy for the purpose of forging an academic consensus. We create and empower well-rounded citizens while respecting parental authority. We promote individualism, nurture talents, encourage passions, and provide opportunities within the Lakeland Joint School District community.
Thank you. Moving on to the district's mission statement. Trustee Bain, would you please read that?
I'd love to.
Thank you.
Lakeland Joint School District's daily mission is to maximize student learning and ensure every student is growing academically, social, emotionally, and behavioral every day and in all environments.
Thank you very much. Okay, our first order of business is approval of the agenda. We do need to amend the agenda as we've had some things go awry. Okay. So it looks like okay. So did you update up to your, no, I know, I'm just looking. Okay, that I knew about. Did you update your report?
Yeah, I had to put Lakeland High School's graduation on from last night.
Okay.
So I had to re-upload it today.
Okay. Heavy. All right, so we need a motion to amend the agenda to move action items 01 to be placed under agenda item I as I-15 and amending the agenda to table items M, M1, N, N1, O, O2, and O3 to June 14th, 2021's special meeting.
I move to approve the agenda with the specified amendments.
I second that motion.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Now we need to move into the budget hearing for the fiscal year 2021-2022.
The next slide.
Yeah, the next tab.
You want this?
No, I think we'll be good. Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Myers. So this is our annual budget hearing that is required by law. And when I do this presentation, I like to preface just a little bit on, really what is this budget document that we're asked to develop and present. And a couple things to remember. First, that the budget document is not a long-range planning tool. It's really just the budget for next year. So 1 year short-term sort of planning document. And what does it really show? What the budget document really shows is all the funds that the district uses to record our revenues and expenditures and our finances. With the general fund being the vast majority and the largest fund, the most important. And then really what it shows, and to distill it simply, because public finance and school district budgets are actually fairly dynamic and complex. But really to drill it down to what it shows that each fund, sort of where our starting balance is, where we think we're going to start the year in each fund, how much dollars we'll have to carry over and move forward. Then it shows how much revenues that we think we're going to receive by each fund by source, whether it's a federal grant or it's our entitlement from the state or a local levy, local dollars. And that gives us a total available balance of that fund. And that's, within budget, this is how much we think in total we could expend if we were going to take what we have and what we earn. And then it shows our expenditures, and in Idaho, expenditures are classified by function and by object. For the budget document, I've used object. I think that easiest way to look at how we're spending it, whether it's a salary, a benefit, purchase services. And so you have all those planned expenditures, and then at the very end, it shows where you think you're going to end. And that's really what, for every fund, with this budget document showing, sort of at a high level look. And so when you see a lot of these numbers and go there, you sort of get back to that's really sort of what the budget document is detailed. So, well, the first slide just sort of shows this is a cover sheet that is given to us by the state, and so I would sort of put that on the first page. On this slide, the reason I include this is the summary statement is what we actually advertise in the paper, and this is the form that we are asked to use by the State Department of Education. So when we advertise for this public hearing, this is what goes into, for us, the quarterly press. And so I tried to just show this just because since it's something that is public and it's there, the board sees this. I don't like the form. It can be very confusing sometimes to the public. What it shows is actual expenditures and revenues the prior 2 years, and then, or it's 4 years, or 3 years, so the 2 years are actual budgets, and the budget from last year because actuals aren't finished yet, and then the budget for this year. And it splits it out. On the left side is just the general fund, and the right side is all of our other funds. And I think it gets a little confusing for a lot of the public because all our other funds are very varied, and depending on what's happening in a year, they could vary greatly, and so it can be confusing. So, for example, if we passed a bond and suddenly thought we were going to get $10 million, that would go into the other funds, and they go, "Why in the previous year you were only spending 5, and now you're spending 15?" Or, well, that's because you passed a bond, but this form is hard to explain the details. Regardless, the other thing that always causes confusion on this is this unappropriated balances on the bottom, right there. And that's the term that the state uses, but really that is our end balance. For this form, we don't have in our financial statements, we might have our committed fund balance, our restricted fund balance, and different ways you define fund balances by accounting standards. Well, this form doesn't really have that, so they just say, well, what are you going to have at the end? And if they said end balance, I think that'd be easier, but that's really what that line is. Okay. Any questions on that form? I mean, the rest of the presentation will really sort of distill this a little more simply. So, as we look at the general fund, the most important part of our general fund funding is from the state. It's about 75–76% of our operating funds from the general fund, and the vast majority of those dollars are generated by these two things: our enrollment in ADA and our staff, and by that I mean our staff mix. So the way the current funding formula works for the state of Idaho is the more veteran staff you have, they give you a higher per teacher average for funding. So if you have a relatively new staff, you get less money than if you had a veteran staff. And so you sort of have to try to anticipate both of those to figure out how many dollars we think we're going to get from the state. And the reason I use enrollment and ADA is that it used to be ADA, this year is enrollment. Next year, I believe it's going back to ADA, but who knows, that could change.
Right.
What goes back to enrollment, that would be good for the district. So when we look at that, enrollment really does drive a lot of that because obviously how many kids you have will then sort of be your planning for how many teachers you need. And so here's a historical enrollment history of the district. And you can see last year, or pre-COVID, we were at 4,586, which is the most kids we ever had in the district. The numbers I'm using to be consistent is we get a net enrollment report from the state as part of our finance report. And so I'm using that number so I can go back historically as a snapshot in time, because pre-COVID, we did have some months where we were like at 4,600 above, but I'm using the official number from that net enrollment report just to be consistent. So for this year, that net enrollment report showed 4,330. at the snapshot in time when they did that, and that would have been earlier in the year, October-ish. So that's a big drop, and obviously, so that can show you the impact COVID had on just our enrollment.
Right. Do you know where we're sitting now? Just
We're around 44.05 or 06. Yeah, we're a little higher. Yeah. Yeah, we actually gained kids as the year went on.
okay, right.
I'm anticipating that we're going to be at 4,500 kids. That's what I built a budget on.
Okay.
That we're not going to get all the way up to 46, but that we're going to be increasing. I think people are going to come back when we have growth. It was sort of a happy medium. I didn't want to try to build a budget of 43. That would really reduce what we think our state's. Another way to look at this would be attendance, because that really, previous to this year, we're not just paid on enrollment, but how often did those students show?
Right.
And you can see that 4,339, again, was our highest average daily attendance. And traditionally, our district, we average about 95, 96% attendance throughout the year, which is really high. Even sometimes 97. So, in any given day, you have 100 kids, 97 show. 3 are gone for various reasons. This year, you can see that from that 40,330 down to 3,823. So not only do we have those kids, it's not 95%. And that's a big drop. If we had to go with that number, if they didn't change the state board, didn't change that rule, we would have been down probably $2 million of state money. It would have been very significant. I'm thinking we're going to be at 4,275 from our estimated 4,500 kids. And so what that does is that generates a funding unit. And there you can see our funding unit history. And again, you can see our actual highest funding unit history, or earned units, is actually back in 2009 and 10. We got close to it last year. So what does that mean? That just means in 09 and 10 that kids are either showing up more consistently. We also get more units for some types of kids. So a high school kid earns more units than an elementary student. And elementary student earns twice as many units as a kindergarten student because they only fund us for half day K. So not all kids are created equal as far as the state funding formula.
Right.
This year, because we have enrollment, our funding units stayed pretty close to last year, which is really good news. That would have been probably 190. We would have just dropped off the cliff. Next year, I'm anticipating that because it's going to have attendance, we're not going to have many kids, that we're going to have a few less units. And if I'm usually pretty good at this, but it's been it's a tough year to guess. So, I mean, I wish I had a crystal ball, but if roughly you can think of, it's a little more than that, but a unit's about $100,000. It's a little more than that. But, so if we came in with 200 units, that'd be $1.3 million less than what budget is. So we're hoping that it'll be important, but we really don't know our unit count until February. So
the unit count, because it's now going for this next year, going to be based on enrollment, not average.
Based on attendance, as I understand.
On attendance, not on enrollment. We lose units. Is that what?
Right,
Okay.
because if a student doesn't show up, so the way they do it is that in the first 10 weeks of the school year are the most important.
Right.
Because every day, we take attendance, and that data is submitted to the state through the IC system.
Mm-hmm.
And so they literally just have a count of how many students are showing up every day, and they average it out over those 10 weeks, and then that will generate how many units you have, and then that generates how many teachers they fund and they average and things like that.
Okay.
So, yeah, if we have, the advantage of enrollment, obviously, is they're sitting there all the time, every day.
Right.
And really, part of our attendance why that drop was so much during COVID is it used to be that you know, we really encourage attendance. We were giving bikes away at 6th grade for all attendance and all these things, and that's a good thing because we're not in school, we're not. But with COVID, you know, the mentality changed, saying, "Wait, if you're sick, please don't come."
Mm-hmm.
And that's a good thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is definitely going to be the philosophy of many families moving forward, and even of our district, right? We want to say, no, if you're not feeling good, please don't come. We, you know, still hanging around. And, so I think our attendance, our traditional good attendance rates may not be as high as previously.
Okay.
But it's all sort of new water for it.
Okay.
But, you know, so this 213, just sort of remember that. And if we're right around there in February, I'll be really happy.
Okay.
So here's some, just a chart of our state revenue history. And this is just the general fund. We do get some state revenues in some of the other funds, but I just kept this since we're looking at the general fund. And you can see that, you know, way back in 08, 09, you know, we had this much in the revenues, and then the Great Recession hit. They actually cut the state funding significantly to school districts. It was pretty dramatic. I mean, you can see, you know, you're down there as quite a percentage, but then as the state pulled out of the Great Recession, the state started funding the career ladder and giving more dollars to school districts, and we started growing. We got more kids. It's a combination of both. Our revenue started increasing where, you know, pre-COVID, that's an actual number of what, 25.9 of our revenues. This 20, the reason I put this in red for this year is that's a guess. I still don't know. I won't know until we do our financial statements, because the state makes some final payments in July, and they're still making some adjustments based on what happened to legislative session and trying to interpret those. So there's a lot of unknowns. But anyway, it's looking like we're going to be down about $1 million from last year in pure revenues of the state. But next year, because I'm anticipating we're going to have a few less units, but that they did increase funding for the career ladder and some other things, that we should get more revenues.
Okay.
As it is.
And the revenues are not in consideration of any COVID monies, correct? Like the ESSER funds?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, this is just a general fund.
Okay.
And in fact, that's a good question. I'll have it that way. So this actually describes what I talked about. So I have sort of this chart for a lot of our other funds in the presentation. We can go through them pretty quickly. But what this shows is our beginning fund balances. I think we're going to be right around $5.6 million this year. We will know when at the end of about September, October, are going to really know, which is a 15.36% fund balance within our policy. So our local tax revenue, you can see those dollars. We have some other local. You can see the majority of our money for the general fund does come from the state revenue. And the federal revenue is only $120,000. That's really our federal E-rate money for discounts on telecommunications. All the other federal dollars is going into other funds, the ESSER and those things.
Okay.
And then just a few transfers in from some of the other funds. So where do we spend all those dollars? Salaries and benefits are the vast majority. You can see 32 million of that 36. Or purchase services, which are utilities, attorney fees, all sorts of purchase services, travel, that's all the service. Supplies and materials, we in general fund relatively, we do buy a lot of things, but for how much our dollars spending is really a small amount. Our insurance, and there's some transfers out, and that goes to the Medicaid fund. So this budget is built because this budget, we're coming out of the COVID, and we reduced staff quite a bit this COVID year because we knew the state was cut, there was state funding cut.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, our elementary specialists, our elementary PE teachers and elementary music teachers, we didn't have because of COVID. Well, we're returning those positions. Well, just that is 12 FTE because 6 elementaries and 2 positions. So we're starting to return those positions. So when you saw that increase in revenues, where are those dollars going? Really to getting our staff back to where we were before COVID.
Okay.
Otherwise, our spending, we're trying to, in the general fund, hold the line. It's really going to staffing and where we think they'll land on our salary schedule. And at the end of the day, that we'll probably cut into fund balance about $500,000, which still would give us at 14%, and we listed within our policy, we still would be in good shape.
Right.
And that's really, you know, this past couple of years have just really shown us how, because we have reasonable fund balance, that when you have some of these uncertainties, as a district, we know that we can weather a storm right now. There will be some districts out there, if they only have a 2 or 3% fund balance, boy, it's nervous time, because they could be borrowing to just make costs. You know, if their attendance enrollment was really off, or they might have to really adjust their program and reduce expenditures somewhere. So we're not there. We're financially in a good place to be able to be more planful if we have to adjust.
Okay.
So this is the revenues by source, just to show you graphically. The state foundation program, that really is where we get our money from salary-based apportionment and what they call our discretionary. That's, you'll hear the word sometimes entitlement, but that is the biggest part of our funding program. And we get some state categorical programs that are in the general fund. Like we get a program called remediation, which goes to spend for, you know, some of our intervention services for kids are behind, and it goes to that. Our state lottery dollars are there, about $300,000 that have to go to facilities and help provide paying for our maintenance staff and, you know, facilities and things like that. So that's the categorical, because it's not part of that entitlement. Our local tax revenue, our levy, which is the bulk of that, is the $9.5 million, then our tort levy, and then some of the other tax revenue is some of the weird things out there, like the property tax exemption and some other things that happen in the state, just the way we have to code it. And you can see, and then the federal and general fund and other transfers in is very small. As a percentage, you can see that the state foundation program is the largest, 66. Categorical is, you know, still important, but our levy, you can see how important that is to our overall revenues. At 27%, that's a real important part of the educational program, supporting what we're doing in Lakewood. And that's, you know, that percentage is probably fairly close to what Coeur d'Alene's doing, and definitely like Pend Oreille. It's lower than Moscow, but it's higher than Post Falls. So every district has a little different levy support, but a lot of districts are well above 20%, and it's not unusual, I guess is what it is.
Right.
And finally, how are we spending our dollars? Again, you can see just graphically, the purple is our largest amount, the salaries and benefits. And then you can see the others, the same dollar amounts, are really a smaller piece of the pie. Supplies and materials are the blue. And then I like this slide, I just break it out. You know, another way to look at the percentage. So 88.4 this year is salaries and benefits in the general fund. And so only 11.6% is our other spending. And you say, how can we do that? Well, part of that is because of some of the ESSER funds. We've shifted some of our technology spending, some of those other things, ESSER funds for this year. Traditionally, we've been closer to 85. So a little more, some of that spending is now shifted to the other funds, and that's why this percentage is a little higher on the salary benefit side. And again, these percentages for the general fund, that's very typical for Idaho school districts. It's actually typical for Washington. If you look at a fire district and public, they do the same way that what the fire departments do. They buy fire engines and they hire fire, firefighters. So any questions? On the general fund, that's sort of just sort of the information I have on the general fund, but to give you you a background. I'm going to quickly go through some of these other slides. I didn't do, in your packet, every fund has sort of where we're going to start, where the money's coming in. And I'm going to just go sort of our biggest funds. I'm not able to hit every one. I hit the majority here. And I'll just sort of go through quickly.
I know this is probably going to seem like a silly question, but some of these other funds actually have salaries and benefits coming out of them. They're not reflective on what's in the general fund, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and so on some of these, for example, we'll go to the first one. So for base, so the base program, you know, which is, I don't know, been in the district maybe about 8, 9, 10 years now, is completely funded by, it says other local, by parent fees.
Okay.
Okay, so this, our base program, it's our before and after school education program. That's what base stands for, but it's really to help families and provide childcare, you know, before and after school. And so we have it at all our elementary schools. And so our fees pay for the program, parents pay for the program, so it's other local. And so you can see most of the expenditures are salary and benefits. So that's paying for our director and the staff of the schools. So you're right. So we have, and some of those staff also might work a few hours at base and a few hours as a paraeducator. So they're combining hours, but part of their salary or wages are paid by this, because that's when they're working in the base. And you know, we have some supplies and materials. But that program should, like I said, it's starting with a positive fund balance, and we think they'll break about even for this year. And so they've been self-sufficient. Their first couple of years in the district, they ran in the red, and the general fund had to cover it. But they've, you know, been doing good for many years. Next fund, this is the literacy fund, and I threw this in there just because it's a, you know, it's a highlight of the governor's budget. You know, he's really highlighting literacy in this program, and so we're taking these dollars. Some districts put in the general fund. We decided to track it just in its own fund. And that other local, that's actually a mistake. I'm sorry on my part. That should say state revenue.
Okay.
That 295. And we are, right now I budgeted salaries and benefits. We usually help cover some of our elementary staff that are focused on literacy, and that is who gets charged to this. And helps pay for some of our staffing at elementary schools. We also have, sometimes we shift some of those dollars and we pay for literacy materials, if need be, and those will be, I didn't put that in budget, but we can, you know, shift those dollars easily, and that would depend on conversations with Assistant Superintendent Sexton and making sure that's the direction that we're going if we're buying new literacy materials or something, or maybe refreshing what we have.
Okay.
State technology, and the state fund, the state has been funding the state technology fund for quite a while. You can see that we're starting with a large balance. This is the highest it's ever been. The reason being is that all of our Chromebook purchases and all those tech purchases we did last year, we used the federal dollars that were going to expire. A lot of our dollars expired right now. And so we used those dollars as opposed to what we would have used state technology or maybe capital for our one-to-one initiative. So again, a couple years ago, this revenue was over 500,000. So the state has cut our revenues for this, but we have a positive balance. But we do have planned expenditures, mostly supplies and materials. That's really mostly Chromebooks and technology to support technology is what the vast majority of those dollars will be going to. The purchase services are some subscriptions for software and things that we have ongoing. So that if we did do the spending, we would cut into that fund balance by a couple $100,000, but we wouldn't go all the way down to zero.
Now, I believe the state when they did their budget, they recommended cuts in technology.
And that's this.
Okay.
And that's why they did. And so, yeah, a couple years ago, this was over 500,000,
Okay.
the revenues. We just, since we really didn't spend hardly anything out of this fund next year. So these categorical funds, when we put them there, they do carry over those funds. Unless for some reason we collapsed a fund and said, okay, we don't need it anymore. And then those dollars would go to the general fund.
Okay.
But that, usually the only time we do that, something like that is if the revenue source goes away. Let's say at some point, state technology, they said, we're not gonna do a line item anymore at the state budget.
Right.
We keep it open until we're sort of down to zero balance, and then we just close the fund.
Okay.
And that's happened with some federal funds that, you know, that we've been eligible for in the past, and then the federal government doesn't support anymore, and they just sort of go away. So safe and drug-free schools, this isn't a very large one, I just sort of put it there to, it's something we've gotten for years, and we've used it in the past, often to support helping with the school resource officer, those costs,
Okay.
contracting. This year, we're going to use it to help with an armed guard.
Okay.
And that you can see that's the salary benefit that we have budgeted. It may not cover all the costs, but it'll cover a good chunk of an armed guard. So, and that's a good use of the funds. So those are the, and just so you, if you want to know wonkiness, so the 240s are, those are state, and like in our, the way we're supposed to code things, those are state categorical. When you get to the 250s, those are federal dollars. So the first one we have is federal Title I. And of course, the Title I program is one of the major federal programs to support education. It's for to help out socioeconomically families and have more resources to them. We can carry over about 25%. So we'll have a little bit of a carryover this year of 98,000. It varies every year. We usually don't spend it all the way, but and then we're anticipating our revenues are going to be at 789. That's a preliminary number. We'll get our final number in the fall, but it will only be a few $1,000s different, or at least that's typical. And the vast majority of our dollars for Title I are for salaries and benefits. And for teachers, we have at our elementary, we have like Title I teachers that provide additional support for students, and also paraeducators, or where the salaries and benefits are going to. How we distribute that staffing changes each year. We have to follow quite a few federal rules of the most dollars have to go to your most need school, and based on a per kid formula. So every year we sort of have to move things around and stay within the grant. But again, those dollars will get them where they need to go based on the formula. Usually there's a few supplies and materials. Some of that is, some of the dollars have to be designated for parent involvement. So they have their parent involvement nice Title I, and they're buying some things. That's where some of these dollars go through. And plus we'll get some supplies and materials, and some purchase services. The transfer out, man, I must have been tired. That 14,675 should be a transfer out. And that actually goes to the general funds, what they call federal indirect.
Okay.
That helps pay for the administrative costs of the program and what we can do. So that, like that 14,675 with the transfer out in the general fund, the first one I had those transfers in, the 33, that's 14 of it, that's where it's coming from.
Okay.
But if all this happened perfectly, we would end the year with a little bit of, we'd still have a carryover, but not quite as much. So, this federal 254, that's a new fund. That is a number that the state asked us to use for ESSER 2. We used 252 for ESSER 1, and that's closed, so I didn't have it because we were done with that fund. So ESSER 2, I added what they have given us so far. So in our grant system, they distributed 1.3 that we can start making claims on now.
Okay.
So that's supposed to go up to 2.6, and we can adjust when that becomes a reality.
Okay.
all the spending I put in here, this was me just sort of filling holes to spend the 1.3. These conversations haven't had, so we can certainly, if we didn't want to spend on capital and want to spend more on salaries and benefits, or if we wanted to spend all on supplies and materials or technology and items, we certainly can do that. And those decisions would be with the board and Dr. Meyer.
Are we allowed to spend the funds on salaries?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So for some of the funds, for example, are, and we're planning, like for summer school, like some of the funds are to do the learning lots and get the kids ready for the fall.
Okay.
So the staff are to provide that. Before, we might have used the general fund for some of those costs.
Right.
But I'm going to use this.
Okay. Okay.
At least that's what I'm recommending. So
Yeah.
some of those will, yeah, because it's right in line with what they've asked us to use it for.
Okay.
We have those costs, and so it's a good thing. So we have, Dr. Meyer and Assistant Superintendent Sexton have been working on those programs, and their plans are going, and
Right.
we're going. So yeah, and so we're going to start coding
Okay.
expenses to those.
Okay.
But during the year, we'll definitely have other things that arise, and certainly to maintain staff can be a use of it. So if we had a significant drop because of COVID, and students aren't attending as much because we've asked them not to attend, which is a different dynamic, that actually is, we could use them and say, well, we have more teachers on staff, we've had this drop in attendance, and we could use that to cover that gap.
Okay.
But that's an unknown. If we don't have to use it, then maybe we can use it for another source, right? So I guess and I could have Dr. Meyer pop in if she'd like.
Board Chair Thompson, I just want to let you know there's something later on the agenda with John Brown Elementary and a Jumpstart program that would fit right in here, and that has salary and benefits in it. So that's something that you'll hear about later.
Okay.
So I guess with all the ESSER funds, it definitely has been a guidance has come out. It seems weekly that if the rules of the game change, or they have further guidance or more clarification, I think we're still in that boat. So we'll follow the rules as best we can and try to put the dollars that we use.
Perfect.
Now this is our regular federal special education dollars. It's called Title 6B, and does help fund special education staff. There's the great amount of it, and it's teachers. It's not all of our special education teachers, but it's several throughout the district. Purchase services, that's really small. That's mostly some travel and maybe a subscription for a specific child, or a service for a specific IEP. And then we do buy some special education, if we needed the materials for accommodations or something like that, or that they'll go with the grant.
Okay.
But the majority, again, is staff. Last, so of our federal grants that are sort of consistent, it's Title I, Federal Special Education, now this Title II. This is for, the official title is sort of for professional development, and teacher effectiveness is, I think, the name of the grant. You can see it is smaller. We have a bit of a carryover, $142,000 of revenue. So this helps cover the cost of our instructional specialists with technology, because that's really a staff development sort of position and supporting your teachers. And then purchase services, usually this can cover, professional dues, maybe some conferences and things like that are professional development for instructional staff.
Okay.
Child nutrition. So, all the dollars for our food service program goes into Fund 290. You see this beginning fund balance last year is about 250. So this year, because every kid was eligible for the program and parents didn't pay $1, it was all reimbursed by the federal government through some waivers that they gave to allow us to do that. Participation was way up because parents didn't have, kids could go, and some of the participation up was like at John Brown, more kids ate breakfast than lunch. That's never happened. It's usually breakfast is very small. So like our breakfast program and the number of meals we're serving is great. And Kevin's able to keep our costs reasonable, and then with the number of meals, we're in the black. So we're anticipating, and that is going to continue for one more year. We have waivers for next year.
Oh, wow.
So next year we will not be asking parents for their application. Well, we will be asking for applications for other reasons,
Right.
but we're not going to be asking the kids for that. The lunch lady's not going to be asking for money from the parents for next year. And then we'll see what happens from there. Does that continue, or does it go back to the traditional national school lunch program where it's free and reduced? But we anticipate, so it's all federal revenue. A little bit of other local would really be catering that, the catering that Chartwell's does. They get a little bit of revenue from there. So if we look here, the purchase services, that would be our cost really to Chartwell's to run the program. Supplies and materials, the vast majority of that really is food. Anybody coded to supplies and materials. The capital outlay, so we're gonna, we sort of had that plan earlier on the things we're buying, we've already bought some stuff. We're gonna start that process and replace aged equipment. That's great. And so we're, I asked Kevin to help me build his budget. And so he said, well, we'll try to end around the same place, but we could, if he buys a few more items, maybe it is just a little bit lower, or if dollars or more, we could maybe build on this. But it's been a really, for us, being able to add to this fund balance about the same time that the program started 22, 23 years ago, and our original equipment was on its last legs.
Right.
It's sort of the one good thing that came from COVID. And some food service programs actually were really hurting across the state because they weren't open, but we were open 5 days a week, and so our participation was way up. So the debt service program, or fund, I should say. So this is really where we collect our property taxes from the bonds that we passed back in 05 and 06. So the property tax collections come to this fund, and then we pay effectively our mortgage on those bonds.
Okay.
So we have a $2.4 million starting fund balance. When we certify our taxes this year, we're only going to collect $936,000. This $35,000 that comes from the state is called bond levy equalization. So we do get some revenues from that. Last year we collected $1.4 million. So you remember in our supplemental levy, that our general fund, our supplemental went up about $500,000, and we said that, well, we're going to reduce our bond collections to offset that. That's what this is, because that literally is, we are doing that. And so because we have this fund balance, the reason we have a fund balance is we have our big payment is in August, so you sort of have to have enough dollars to make that payment. So we're going to collect this $936 for the next 3 years. So you can see our fund balance is going down a little bit each year. And so at the end of the 3 years, that is going to be it. Okay. This fund will be over with unless we pass another bond and kept going. But it's just really just saying, okay, here's the expenditure, here's where I have a little difference, not start benefits, debt, retirement. So that's actually the principal and interest of what we pay for our debt service schedule. Plant facility fund, we have one more year of the plant facility fund that's been passed, and we'll have to make a decision as a district? Do we go back to the voters to renew that, or have another plan for capital funds? We are going to have a pretty good fund balance, but starting, some of that's timing. In other words, we have the more portables coming. I just haven't written a check yet for it. It's a timing thing. When I write the check in July, it hits next fiscal year. So that also, like we're doing the guard with roof. We've written the PO, but I just haven't written the check. So we have a lot of encumbrances of that 925 that just haven't gone out the door yet.
Okay.
And there's our local tax collection is the same dollar amount that the voters approved the last 4 years. So this is year 5 of that fund facility levy. So we have a total available of $2 million. And so the vast majority for next year, we're going to spend on the capital outlay of some of those large projects, some supplies, materials, and sometimes there's some services in the contracts we have that you code those services as opposed to a capital outlay.
So does the capital outlay have the portables in it?
Yes.
Okay, so the portables then are part of that 711,000?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we have a transfer out of this $225,000. That goes to the next fund, our bus depreciation fund. Here's the 225, here's a transfer in and helps us buy buses. So we could actually buy the buses out of the plant facility fund, but the state, we get dollars from the state called bus depreciation. We keep in this fund, so I try to keep it all there so we know. We're going to carry over some dollars, and actually our buses just arrived, which is
Okay.
really good because when we just ordered, took that long. It was like COVID made everything slow. But we should get about $115,000 of depreciation, so a total of $400,000 to work with. And so I would, at this point with the bus fleet, I'd just like to buy 4 buses. So that's the 414.
Okay. So 4 more buses?
Yeah.
Or, okay.
Yeah, we need
No,
to buy buses every year. Yeah,
Okay.
we get behind.
right.
In a perfect world, we buy about 6 buses every year.
Okay.
Because we have about 60 buses. They have, the state pays you depreciation dollars up to 12 years.
Okay.
After 12 years, you don't get any more state because that's a 12-year-old bus too.
Right.
So really 60 buses, we want at least 5 just to keep up.
Okay.
We want to do 5 every year, we haven't. So in vertical, we do like 6 every year to start catching up.
Mhm.
We just haven't had really the resources, and our mechanics do a great job.
Right.
But
What's our oldest bus?
well, there are some from the previous century.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
They're not used very much.
But they're there.
But they're there. And
Okay.
actually, our worst 3 buses were surplus from part of the bid. So it was Bluebird who won the bid. They took our buses away, the 3 worst. They
Okay.
surplus them. And I think we got about $3,000 for each bus.
Okay.
And so that's just sort of my brief overview of all the sort of those major funds, but there's a little more information with the actual board document. But I'm here for any questions, comments, and discussions. And as part of the budget hearing, if there are any public comments too, this is the time for those also. I know it's sort of a lot of information, so sort of a lot, and it's not very exciting.
I'm looking at the other document. Just one second. So from last year's budget to this year's budget, we've increased our budget. It appears about 7 million. Does that sound about right? Because it's at 57 million.
When you're looking at, if you look at all, you're looking at all funds.
Yes, total funds. I'm looking at the supplemental document to the budget.
Are you looking at the summary, this one, the summary statement?
Yes. Summary statement, all funds. Looks like the proposed budget's 57,373,167. Okay. And this last year's budget was around 51, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Last year's was, 40, it was about 52.
52, okay.
Roughly. Yeah, and so some of that would be as far as the budget would be, one would be the ESSER funds.
Okay.
There's 1.3
That's a
of it right
significant
there.
amount, yeah.
Some of that is the general fund, which we're anticipating is going to go up over $1 million. So half of it's just the general fund and that.
Okay.
And then for our actual spending, we're anticipating spending more like in classroom technology, spending more at food service for sure with all that participation. So that's where some of the increase.
A lot of it is drawdown on fund balance too.
And
So
we're
it's
drawing
not
down,
bringing in
right.
additional
So-
funding for that. It's using money that we already have in place.
Right. Okay.
That's why the fund balance goes down from.
Yeah, and
Almost
and actual vote,
it's going down.
yeah, the fund balance from our and all our other funds, we're starting running with 5.6, which is similar to the general fund, but we'd be down to 4.7. Some of that drop would be, some of that, right there at that about a $900,000 drop. Well, 500,000 of it is the debt service fund.
Okay.
And then, and that's going to show each year as we start whittling that fund down.
Okay.
It's gonna, since it's such a big number, that's why I think when you look at, the summary statement, this one, that's why it can get confusing, because when you get capital projects funds and debt service funds and some of those come and go, like big bonds, it looks vastly different. So when we passed, when I was working for Coeur d'Alene Schools, and we passed a $35 million bond, if you look from year to year, suddenly we had 1 year, and now we're going to build a new school for $20 million. And it was like, why do you increase your budget by $20 million? Well, because we're building a school, and we didn't last year.
Right.
But if you just look at the numbers and you don't know the story behind it, it didn't look, it looked funny.
Right.
So, yeah.
No, that I understand.
Yeah, and some of this, the funds just, have like this summary statement that the state asks us. It's another way really to look at this one. It's another summary
It's the
statement.
same.
It's sort of the same.
Right.
But
Similar
they want
information.
both forms, so that's why we do.
Okay.
But I like that this other one with the blue has the
Yeah.
proposed, the total
Right.
of all funds, and it gives you a kind of a better snapshot of the full picture, and
Right.
not just like this one. I mean, you're not looking at the totals.
Right.
Yeah,
They're broke apart.
right, and I agree.
So you have
Trustee
to.
Dayton, I never did like this form, but it's the one that we
Yeah,
publish.
yeah.
It's sort of confusing sometimes.
I would like to see too, capital outlay schedule. Like, what are we spending
Right.
those
we
capital
can-
dollars? So I would
On
like
some of
to
those, yeah,
look
I can.
deeper
We
into
can
that.
do that for, at another.
Mhm.
I mean,
Absolutely.
Did you want it for another workshop? Did you want just information forwarded to you, or?
If you could just forward it to me, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'll work with Mr. Ferriol and we'll sort of show you what we think is going to happen in the next 12 months.
Okay, that'd be great.
So our budget's acknowledging SR2 funds, but what about SR3?
No, we're not right now. I haven't received any information as far as the official dollars on that. Also, ESSER, we have to spend ESSER 2 before we spend ESSER 3.
Correct.
So
So-
we're really looking for guidance and for the dollars.
Okay.
So we can certainly, when we get those grants, and that's happened in the past, not to this extent for the dollars, but you might apply for a federal grant mid-year and you just sort of add it and move forward.
Mm-hmm.
If we get those grants, we can, there is a formal process where we can amend the budget and actually adopt, go through this whole thing, a public hearing, we have to advertise everything, and it's like moving the budget over. That's something we could do if we thought it was significant enough, or we know we could just say, let's say ESSER 3 is, they give us an allocation of $2 million, and we could just, you know, as part of board work and work with Dr. Meyer, that we say, okay, well, this is a new grant, and just sort of be, as opposed to doing that formal process with a public hearing, just sort of include that as another planning tool, and just know that, okay, now we have this, how is that going to fit in what we have over here, and just sort of move forward, and then where we think that end balance is included in next year's budget.
Okay.
Sort of the board's preference.
Okay. So I think I'm good with my questions.
Does Rob have any?
I don't see any. Trustee Irons, do you have any questions?
Nope, I'm following along.
Just making sure you're still there.
A different year with a lot of different moving parts. I'm just awfully glad that we have some balance that we.
Yes, for sure.
And Sharon Thompson, I did ask all on Zoom to unmute if anybody has questions.
Okay.
For the public comment. I'm not seeing any unmuting their microphones right now, though.
Okay. So then I believe we're good to close the budget hearing. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Chrissy, do we have any patron input?
We do have a patron that signed in tonight, although
Okay.
I will say that topics to discuss are not topics that are on the board meeting agenda tonight.
Okay. Well,
Do you want to see this one?
I wouldn't have a problem with that person coming and addressing the board, hearing what they have to say, and then we can add it to, if there's more in depth, we can add it to an agenda so that they can properly discuss things. So Jacqueline Meyer. Okay. We usually have a podium.
It's right here.
Okay. Would you mind standing there? Yes, that'd be great.
Thank you for letting me speak. This is not something I usually do, but I just wanted to say a few things.
Okay.
I'm sorry, it's gonna seem weird that I'm crying because I haven't given you any context yet, but I just wanted to thank everybody on the board for the school district that you have here. I'll give you more background because I am from Washington State. I have been here for 3 months. We left Washington with our 3 kids and came specifically to this school district. We told our realtor, we don't care where we live as long as we are in this school district because of how you handled COVID and because you got the schools open and were brave and listened to your parents. I couldn't believe it when my friend who is from Rathdrum and has lived here for over a decade, I couldn't believe it when she told me that school was open, because where I'm from, which is the Vancouver, Washington area, they were completely shut down. They didn't ask for parent input. They didn't care what we thought about masking, being open. Our only choices are, do you want remote or do you want part-time, like 2 half days a week in class with masks all the time? they didn't ask the question. And when I heard that you asked the parents, you should have seen my jaw drop. I couldn't believe it. So just thank you for being here. This has been such a hard year. I have a 7-year-old with leukemia. His doctors, head of children's oncology, were saying he should be in school. He needs to be in school. He doesn't need to wear a mask. Nobody back home cared. So just to have an option here, this has been a godsend for us. Thank you. I also separately wanted to give you more of a background on Washington State and how on fire it is right now. My entire family lives there still. My husband's family, my sister-in-law is a teacher. It's on fire, and it's on fire not just over how they're handling COVID, which I think is shameful, but it's on fire over critical race theory, equity, which is not the same thing as equality, sexuality education. And I am just terrified of uprooting my family for the school district and having things change. Like I saw my hometown where I was raised and went through school, and my husband and his family goes back like 50 years. It changed, it seems like that, just overnight. And so I just would implore you to protect what you have here. It's so special, and I think that you're protecting children is so important, and I'm hoping that that continues to be the case. I would love to, my name and numbers on there, I would love it if somebody could call me, anybody on the board. I just would love to talk about my concerns and find out if we're on the same page, and if you feel like this is gonna be a safe space for people who want their kids to be educated and not indoctrinated, because that's what I'm looking for, and I'm hoping that that's here.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you.
you. You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, moving on to the action items. First would be the consent agenda. The first portion is approving the minutes. Do you have any comments or questions on the minutes? Okay. There was one. There's one thing that I think needed to be changed. Mine does this. It goes away, and now I have to find my spot again. Just find the regular. No, special. I think it's on the special board meeting minutes. You have Trustee Grissom as stating something that I believe I stated.
Okay.
And I think it's, yeah, it's on the discussion items.
Okay.
That's the last sentence, the second to the last sentence, right above clerk of the board. Trustee Grissom asked about having all the documentation of the sick leave council and the board, and that the board needs this information. I believe that was me.
Yeah.
And then I also added that the class size needs to be in alignment with statute.
Got it.
Okay. So Rob, did you have any input on the meeting minutes? Do you recall? Trustee Irons?
Yes.
I don't think you heard you. Did you have any comments or concerns on any of the minutes?
No, I didn't see anything that.
Okay. Then if I could have a motion to approve minutes of the previous meetings, May 27th, 2021, the regular meeting, June 1st, 2021, special meeting, and June 7th, 2021, board workshop.
So moved.
Seconded.
Hearing a motion in a second, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Moving on to the HR item. Are there any comments or concerns with regard to the HR items as presented? Okay, well, I do. I am concerned about what appears to be a mass exodus of our coaches. I'm very concerned about that. And I'm wondering, Dr. Meyer, could you potentially look into why that is?
Sure.
Okay, I would appreciate that. We have an abundant amount of varsity coaches at one of our high schools leaving. Other than that, I don't have any comments or concerns. So if I could get a motion to approve the HR items as presented.
I will move to approve the HR items as presented.
I second that motion.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Moving on to the regular and special bills. My only question is, I notice often we have a lot of extracurricular trips for meal reimbursement.
That's if they go to state, if they made
Okay.
it to state.
Okay.
Then by our policy, they get $15, five for each meal. And so we give, the coach decides whether they want to take the check and then they pay and
Okay.
get reimbursed, or some coaches give the $15 to the kids. It
Okay.
doesn't really cover the cost of food, but it's a little bit that helps out. It was on the first levy and it was on the second levy and it was on the third instructional levy. That's where it's funded from.
Okay.
So that's what the meal reimbursement's for.
Okay, and then you mentioned that it's pursuant to our policy. Is that like
It's
an
not-
HR policy
No,
or?
it's a fiduciary, what's it called, Brian? Or,
and he goes, I go, you know the dad. And he goes, who? And I said, Chris. And he goes,
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty typical of, the basketball team makes it to state.
Right,
You know,
no,
feed the kids, and that's sort of what it is.
okay,
it's in the fiduciary, am I saying that word, fiduciary?
That is correct.
But, yeah.
okay.
And
So
it was on,
fiduciary.
it's funded all three levies have had it on there. If they make it to state.
Yeah, and it'll be fun. And there could be, I suppose, resources there maybe in the past where the district, if you were participating, you'd say, parents, please provide the dollars, but we try to help out with that cost.
It doesn't, it just offsets it a little bit, but it definitely doesn't cover, obviously, the cost when they're in Boise,
No, I
you know.
just been there for 3 months. I
Yes,
get it.
Yeah, you get it. So.
I do. Okay. So other than that, I have no other questions at this time. Do you have any
Nope,
questions?
I do not.
Okay. Then. If I could get a motion to approve the regular and special bills as presented.
I will move to, oh, second. I'll
Having a
second that.
motion in a second, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. I would like to allow the students to present if we could first.
I was gonna ask you, but I think we're still waiting for one student.
Oh, are we? Okay, not a worry then.
See if she's texted. Sorry.
Oh, no worries.
I was gonna ask that same thing I just asked Chrissy.
Oh, okay.
I think I'm gonna ask if the other third one's here,
Yeah.
that would be wonderful.
Yeah.
I think Mr. Wallace's is very short, so he could do this May one if you want, while we're,
Okay,
if you want, and
Sure.
then we can certainly then move it up.
okay.
And it's first thing on my superintendent's report, so then I can let them know and everyone else can know and I can put my rest, if that's okay.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I just,
Yeah, me too. Sorry, Mr. Wallace.
That's right, you can drive. So we'll make, you've heard enough of me probably tonight. So for the finance report, as you look at that, we're into May, that we did receive some state revenues. You can see for the month, roughly $3 million, or about $3.1 million this month. So that is a May payment that we get. Our final payment will be in July, but it's accrued back, so we'll report in June officially, but we won't really know those dollars till the end of July, maybe early August. If we go all the way, our revenues are at 89.11%, so we're getting close to the end of the year. We'll get some final property tax collections and then some state revenues, and that's it. Expenditures were at 78.26%. So we're tracking actually really well. Some of that's a little lower because we've shifted dollars than historically. You can see previous year we're at 80 or 81. And percentage is sort of a big deal when you have this large.
Right.
A lot of that is really shifting some of the dollars to the federal funds, and then some state funds that halfway through the year that we're going to be in the general fund, and then they restored. So it's just sort of been a really interesting year. But I think we're going to end up in a pretty good spot this year with our fund balance. That's why I anticipate it's going to go up a little bit in budget. And so, we'll know where the final is later in September when we have our audit. But, we're tracking well. We, sort of navigated this year really well, given all the uncertainties. So financially we did fine. If you look again, the red is starting to move across the board. You can see in some areas, like let's say maybe can zoom out just a little bit. If you look like extracurricular and other instructional, some of these other areas, they're a little farther down. Some of those are coding things. But extracurricular, it's closer than the other red because we haven't accrued salaries yet. We do that in June. So that'll really move that red to the end of the blue. As far as function, if we go to the next page and looking at by object, like we did the budget, again, you can just see that our salaries and benefits aren't near the end, like our purchase services, supplies, and materials, because we only have a few more weeks of those, our month of June, and that will definitely get closed out. But the salaries and benefits, July and August, so teachers have earned the dollars.
Right.
We haven't paid them yet, so once we do an accrual, that will sort of budget. Finally, to Trustee Bain's question about enrollment. There you go. The last time I had the number. And we get pre-COVID at 4,600, that'd be good because some of the attendance, but enrollment has held pretty steady considering the year.
Okay.
But yeah, I think we're in good shape. Not too much new at this point. Any questions?
No.
All right.
Looks good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
She's on her way. Her other meeting lasted longer than she anticipated. So.
Okay. So then we could just
You want to go to the next agenda?
Stay in order until
Yeah. We'll go ahead.
she's on her way. Yeah.
The proposed speech agreement. That's what's next, the proposed speech agreement.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm draping everywhere.
Nobody trip over those.
Please.
That was me.
Patty Morrison, so I'll let her introduce your staff.
Okay.
I'm the chair and trustee, and trustee Bain. Thanks for having me back. I'm principal of LOA right now, but I brought staff with me this time just because you gave us a little more time to speak about online learning. In Lakeland, we wanted to address a little bit some highlights of what we've done this year, and then talk a little bit about the Teach Academy that we're hoping for next year. But I'll let my awesome two teachers here introduce themselves.
I'm Laura Foster. I've been teaching for 23 years now, 13 in Lakeland District, and the past year, 3rd grade at LOA.
And I'm Lindsay Hudson. I've been in our district for 13 years, and I've taught music, band, choir, mostly this year. I have 6th grade at LOA.
One thing I wanted to share, and I know you've seen slides previous to tonight, but we've just been taking feedback all year long from families about how our approach to online learning worked for them. Totally, like Dr. Myers told you, put together very quickly because some of our parents wanted that option. So we just had some wonderful feedback from parents. And I mentioned last time too when we were together that there was a theme of things going on. One was that we did need a lot of parents really did want this choice with us. I won't read them all to you, but another thing that is said is that not only did they appreciate it, but also that one thing that was missed was the social interaction with other kids, and that was something they were hoping they just knew their kids didn't have enough of this year. So those are pretty neat. I won't take all your time tonight to read them all to you, but there's some special feedback we've gotten from parents to know that we did do some things well. What we did learn a lot this year and put a lot of professional learning time into, and I couldn't be prouder of the teachers that we had working for us this year, was that we did learn how to keep kids engaged. For as much as one school year can do, there's still more room to grow for some kids or families that maybe didn't have the ability this year during a pandemic or have the skills to be able to be super successful at home, but a lot of success stories and a lot of people that came a long way. So we did learn a lot about that as far as engagement goes. If you have questions, these guys would be the best ones to answer about that. And then what encourages learning about technology, we learned that too from our parents wanting to know more and understand how to support their children more, to just our kids. Mrs. Hudson just had a kiddo turn in the slideshow just talking about her turnaround in learning this year, and that was a neat way to top off the year to see that from a 6th grader. We also learned how connecting with our families when they're at home and our students at home is important, that everybody wants a sense of belonging to a school somewhere. So we learned a lot about how to do that, I think. And then I just wanted to make clear this time that we started the process of building all the normal committees that we have in our regular schools to, from MTSS systems, an intervention for kids that might be struggling, to just PBS systems, which these two are integral with both of those pieces to build a positive, supportive climate for all of our kids. Technology committee and a safety committee. And our safety committee this year, their task was to create a student handbook that would be appropriate for an online school. So we have basically taken some handbooks from other online schools. We took yours, Mrs. Sheff, from John Brown, and we have just been recreating it. So that is there too for your perusal. One thing we would need to come back in the future and talk about, should we move forward with an online program next year, would be our guidance for our families for attendance and participation. We had to be very flexible this year with that, and we probably want some further discussion about that with you, making you aware of all of that. And then we just put this together by keep offering online learning. We have just felt like with a hybrid approach that we can meet more needs now and respond to families that do want to homeschool, but also want that social interaction for their kids. So that's the hybrid we've been talking about so much lately. We'd like to have a local hybrid school for our community because we don't want to lose any of our students. These guys certainly don't, that they put a year into connecting with. We don't want to lose them to another online school, which is very much the plan for some of our families and some of our other families that left in August for other schools too, earlier than when we got our program started. We feel like there would be an ease of moving back to his own school whenever a student felt that they needed to or they were ready to, because we have some situations where kids are really learning from home because they need to. Because we use the same curriculum we follow, and I participate with the leadership team on everything that every other principal does, the teachers do as well, same assessment system, same school calendar. But we just feel like we're making our community stronger. We're building connections with maybe folks that we haven't always gotten to work with and partner with. We've created really strong family partnerships, and we're actually meeting the need and serving homeschooling families for the first time, and some of them from out of our district. So why did we move to Reach? We really just didn't want to be thought of as Lakeland Online Academy. We wanted a name that would encompass a lot of the things that we did learn this year about relationship building and enrichment opportunities. But hybrid is the key word there. We wanted our families to know it wouldn't just be online. It would be a way for kids to come and see their teachers and see their classmates in real life. The cost, or where would we do this at? I know there's been some discussion or questions about that. I sure hope we can answer any questions you have tonight. Just to make sure everybody is clear, we already have an existing building. We created that for ISAT testing to get all students to come in and take their tests there and have the support to do that very well. It seems appropriate for the things that we're talking about possibly doing in the future. There's a huge field and outdoor space there for movement and other outside, I don't know, Mrs. Foster wants to dig in the dirt and stuff like that with her kids. So we do think we'll gain a little bit of more validity in some assessments, possibly with kids when they're with us in some situations. And then we can do hands-on math. Manipulatives would be more easily prepared and ready to give to kids. Science, art, readers, theater, music, of course. I don't know who's going to teach that one. And then family and community engagement and partnership opportunities. It's just right there, just close to a lot of downtown Rathrum. Just to, before you might have any questions, this is where we're standing right now. 63 kids have saved their spot. Some multiple siblings from a family, but that's kind of how the layout's going for those grade levels. We would anticipate more likely in August as well. And then we have 12 out of district so far. So represented from 4 different school districts in our North Idaho area. So there seems to be a little bit of buzz at least. So thank you. And I just ran through that, but I really just wanted you to be able to inquire, ask any questions you have tonight. I know you're wondering probably many things.
I don't really have any questions, and I'm sure that the program will evolve depending on the enrollment, and I just think that this past year has really identified some different ways that we can reach out to the kids that aren't coming to school on a daily basis. So I really do think this is a good opportunity to reach some of those kids that, like I said, don't have an opportunity, don't come to school every day.
Thank you. I think we saw that too, that this could meet lots of varied needs for students and families in a school year.
I know some of the trustees that are not here tonight had questions more along is the school self-sustaining, or will the enrollment support the staff? Questions along those lines.
That's my question, is what is the threshold of, how many students, what's the minimum number of students? Is this viable?
And I know other people can speak to it too. I think one thing I would just mention is a pretty good conversation I had with the director of elementary education at IDLA and what they were planning after what they saw this year too. They had a lot of kids come to them with their online school this year, and they're thinking about 30 kids per FTE, I believe is what the conversation we had with support from a paraprofessional.
And so that's at the elementary level. Then I think that changes somewhat at the middle school level. I think some of what can get put together as we partner with families, because our families, when you're home 4 days a week, or you're supporting 4 days of learning at home, it's a piece for our families to learn. And a lot of them want to do that. Most of them are doing that. So we could help with that in whatever ways. I think then for our part, what the teachers have learned to do this year remotely, but also now in person, it really comes to the people I think that we recruit and have come work at the academy. Both of these ladies can teach a variety of things for the first two that we're hoping to move forward with, as well as extracurricular things, because there is that thought in my mind. Maybe Dr. Meyer can talk about other things.
We did the budget based on 25-1, because that'll cover the cost. So if we had, you know, said to start out with, to even take it forward to the board to be viable, it needs to have, if we have 2 FTEs, we need to have 25 kids per, which means they're going to be teaching, as of right now, they would be teaching multi-age groups. So they've both done some research and studying, and then they've both had experience of multi-age, meaning we cannot afford as a district to do what we did this year with, here's a kindergarten teacher, here's first grade, here's second grade, here's third. To my understanding, they both understand that they are doing multi-age, but financially, we can support it at a 25-1 ratio.
So these two understand that, but do our families understand that they will be multi-age groups being taught in the same?
The ones that we've talked to do. We've had 2 open houses, and I've talked to parents about that. And the thing about an online and hybrid situation is that it's not going to be like if I was in person with 4 grade levels at the same time. I would have my 4th grade time at a different time than my 5th grade time, 6th, 7th, have live meetings with them. Sometimes we might do something where we're talking about the same thing, or we're writing and sharing what we've written. So we might do a meeting together. When we're in person, depending on what we're doing, we've already talked about possibly both of us being at that hub that day and rotating kids, team teaching. We've worked together. We've also done the drama club at Garwood. So we're a good team that way. So it's not going to be a traditional model, but we're both creative and we'll make it work with whatever we end up having. Because at this point, I'm planning on possibly teaching 5th through 8th grade, you know, kind of thing, but I can make it work. I've taught kindergarten through 8th grade in one day with elementary music and choir and dance.
So do we have 75 students, or is that 12 in 63?
It's 63 total.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think if we move forward and we advertise more, I think we'll have more students. Because the parents we've talked to have been really receptive at our open houses, but we just haven't advertised much. So that's 63 kids with a little bit here and there, you know, kind of talking about it.
All my families that have signed on for next year that are in my class currently, they all know that I will be teaching multiple grades. They talked to me about it. They're enjoying what is happening this year. They love the fact that there'll be at least 1 day a week when their kids are in person, and so they all know that already as well.
So the 1 day in person is a requirement, or is it optional?
Well, this year we did use flexibility as a really important way. We learned a lot about what our families need. I have actually had a conversation with the family about it. We haven't gotten into all of those decisions because we just need to know if we're moving forward. I feel like Mrs. Sexton and I had a conversation about it. We've been talking a little bit about this year. And I guess what I'd like to say, and I guess it's just a starting point to talk about policy, but is that we want to partner and work with all of our families no matter where they're at. And so after 30 years in the business, what I'd like to say is, you know what, it might be that attendance is, you know, your child is struggling because of the attendance, lack of attendance, or lack of participation online. Why don't you come in, let's just sit down and visit about what the problems are and just, you know, use common sense and start from there. And then at some point we could recommend, you know, maybe this isn't working, maybe you want to go back to the traditional model. Parents have choices, and I guess that's where this all kind of started, was giving them options.
I think a lot of it would of course depend on what the policy is, but this year we did do ISATs in person, and I had 100% attendance, just the only ones that opted out, or ones that just there was no way they could get here, or they were sick. But like other than that, I had 100% attendance of that. Even some of my kids that maybe didn't participate as much online with like the live sessions, they came to ISATs. So
Didn't seem to be a real burden.
I have the same experience with it, and even today we got together for an end of year party, and almost all of my kids came for that, and they loved every minute of it. We had so much fun.
And that's what we're seeing was the kids would push their parents to let them come. I think that if we got into a situation where there was a problem, just like in schools, sometimes there's a problem with kids attending, it wouldn't be the norm. That's not what we've seen. We've seen really great partnership, even up to that time of getting them to the ISAC testing.
Well, there's been some students that parents have contacted me, they're a little shy about even coming to a live meeting. They were they were just didn't know any kids, and like, so I just met with them individually for a while till they felt comfortable to come to the live sessions. So I like to think outside the box. I'm not just gonna give up on a kid because they're shy or scared, and we just kind of met and talked and just did something that wasn't even school related for a little while. So okay, she's okay, and then I'm like, you know, your classmates are really nice,
And yeah, that's a great example of exactly what we would like to do is increase that engagement of kids that maybe haven't been engaging, that live within our district, whatever it takes.
Well, in respecting that there is no policy to govern virtual or
attendance.
Hybrid school, because we do have virtual policies that need to be revisited. But if, say, there was a child that just did not want to engage in the one-on-one meeting, get together with your classmates, is that problematic?
Not from what we've talked about so far.
Okay.
I don't think so.
So for some families, it could strictly be just an online learning school.
Yeah, I think it would be kind of case by case.
Okay.
We would get very flexible, get together with that family, talk to them about what their needs are, just go forward and step. I mean, there's some that if they're not going to do the work too, then that would be problematic. But if they're doing the work and keeping up and they just can't get to those, then we would work with them on that.
I think we could know about alternative assignments on a case by case basis.
Okay.
And that's a great question, because we actually have some that are asking those questions, where they have kids involved at a pretty high level, some competitive things across the nation.
Right.
So, and those parents are pretty excited to hear that this could be an option. I think our parents want the same thing we want, and that's what we're recognizing too, that one size doesn't have to fit all. They want their kids to thrive. We want their kids to thrive. So if we bump into some ground where, for some reason kids aren't, well, that does happen to kids, and it's not always a big catastrophic reason, it's just kids. So we would, like I said, the biggest thing is to make a connection and to partner with folks that want to explore the homeschooling world, but be there to support them in the ways in which they need it.
I think that was the most exciting thing for me this year, was that partnership with the whole family. It wasn't just that student, but knowing the parents personally, knowing their pets. They were in meetings all the time, just getting to know the whole family where you don't necessarily get that normally, and working with them across the board. It was really exciting, really unique. It was kind of sold me on it. That's like made me love it.
I don't remember all the other questions.
They did address the questions in the last board meeting that the board had. I wrote down every single thing, checked, made sure I got everything from what was asked, and then we had to make sure that everything was addressed in this. So all the questions that were asked, the draft. The only thing she didn't open up that one board member asked about was the draft student handbook. So that would be a piece. The board approved student handbooks. That would, and we have this as an action item today because we want to move forward as soon as possible to let families know and staff know, but we would want to move forward with the handbook so that we are addressing some of the concerns that I talked about with attendance, and if we need create, get some policies in place for however that may look.
Okay, well, unfortunately, I couldn't open it until today. But the student handbook does state Lakeland Online Academy, not REACH.
And that's,
So,
yep, that's just because it's complete draft all year. At one point, we started thinking, okay, we'll have a student handbook for this LOA. But
okay,
it really, it was a program this year, and we were all connected, they were all connected, the students to their home schools still. So
Okay.
we were creating that all year, really exploring all the difficult things.
Okay.
Since all the kids did have handbooks, basic operations to their home schools.
okay,
But yeah, that will be a change, for sure, to
Okay.
the new academy's handbook, should we go forward.
okay.
It'd be great on the trustees that you changed my email address to my email address rather than former trustee Olmsted's email address listed under my name.
Yeah, let's not
That'd be good.
do that. We can fix that.
So I don't have any more questions.
I don't have any.
Okay. Thank you very much for the
Thank you.
presentation.
Thank you,
Thanks
ladies.
for your thank yous.
Watch right here, because there's a we have, I'm just gonna have them do all the talking, but I just want you to see pictures, so I wanted them to introduce themselves. They're from Timberlake High School, you probably recognize a few of them, but they did something really special on May 28th, first time in this district. Mr. Everland couldn't be here because his son is graduating from kindergarten to first grade, right? One of the two grades. So that was very important, and I said that was fine. So I just want them to kind of say what they did, and those are the only two slides. So you guys take as much time as you want and just let the board know what you did and how it went in the community.
Sure. My name is Zachary Pasley. I'm a freshman. And basically we got to go out and go into the community and kind of show that we were there. We didn't sit on the sidelines this time, just kind of said like, oh, we're at school today. It was kind of a chance to give back. It was really nice. I personally got to go with my football team, which was in itself a great bonding experience because, I mean, you get to see them in school, you get to see them in practice, but you also kind of get to see them outside of that too.
Good.
So it kind of brings us closer to the maybe upperclassmen. So that was kind of nice. And then also it just kind of gives you this sense of the community can realize that we're not just kind of there to just be there. Like we actually can do something for them. And that was really nice to kind of see this, like I am doing something for the community that is supporting me.
Right.
Hi, my name is Pfeiffer Bernhardt. I'm a junior at Timberlake. I attended the community day cleanup with the band and choir group. We went to the cemetery, we cleaned up around there, and then we went to the Apple Park and cleaned up a bit around there. And I really enjoyed the experience there. It was nice being able to do it. It was nice getting into some of those like areas like the cemetery that like I guess might get overlooked in our community and maybe not be seen as something to be taken care of. And I also think it was really good to help combat the sort of stigma that like teens are not those members of the community that are seen as helpful or contributing. And so I think it was really good that we were able to participate in this.
My name is Katie Bain. I did this through FFA, and we kind of had this vision in FFA. One of our values in FFA is living to serve. So we started thinking up an idea, like how do we want to do this? It started as, okay, our FFA needs to go do some community service to live our values. And then we're like, that's not fair. We have an entire school that can give back to our community. And as both of them said, there is that stigma around most high school students. That is that we don't give back to our community. In fact, we're taking away from it, you know, littering, all those types of things. And we wanted to take that away from not just FFA, but from our entire high school. We wanted them to see us as active members in our community, giving back and living to serve our community. So this idea shaped from something that we did at our FFA state convention 2 years ago, where every FFA chapter who went to state signed up online for a little 2-hour community service thing. We're like, why don't we just do that? But we'll include every club, every kid who maybe isn't in clubs but wants to give back, and of course ourselves. So we started working with other groups in the school. Our leadership group kind of came into that, all the different sports teams, all the extra clubs, extracurriculars. We really just wanted to bring our entire school together and then give back to our community. So my group went and we went down to the beachfront, cleaned up some of the little trails that wander off from the beachfront, walked our way up Main Street, cleaned up in there, started planting flowers in one of the little community garden areas. And I think that it was really successful. I mean, we had around 300 students participating, and that's just from our little school. But as this continues, we're hoping that it becomes an annual thing where more and more students see this as a way to earn community service hours, give back to their community, pull in things that they're participating in the community so that we can give back to that. So that's where that started, and I think that it became something amazing.
That's excellent.
Pretty cool.
You guys for your time.
I just have a real quick question. How, now Katie's graduating and you said you're a freshman and a junior. So I was just curious if maybe Katie has some advice for you folks about how this could be sustainable. Did you hear, because she said we want to make sure this goes on, but she's going to be in Hawaii next year. So what's some advice you can give them, Katie, so this really can continue?
I think the biggest thing is, I mean, we reach out to them and they really saw that on May 28th, yeah. So that was cool, but talking to them throughout the year, figuring out what needs to be done, then like pulling people from your friend groups, from things that you're active in, and saying like, hey, let's not sit at school for this 3-hour slot. Let's not just chill or work on work. Let's just take this time that we're given to give back to the community. So I think that's a big part of it.
And you guys were both in Spirit Lake and Athol? Is that correct?
Yes.
Cool.
And I have, just so that the board knows, we've got a lot of positive feedback from people, and the Spirit Lake Chamber was very appreciative. The trail says if we do it a couple weeks early, so it'll depend on the school, they would love some more help. Katie spoke about the Empire Trail that kind of started to go down that. There's certainly more to do in a couple weeks earlier in May. And I have had other schools now, the Spirit Lake, Athol, and Timberlake Middle School, have asked if they can participate. So it may turn into something a lot.
Oh, that's exciting.
District-wide.
Yeah, I mean, it could be.
It should be.
Yeah.
It should be.
Talk about what the, like the different groups, I know that you guys have each spoken to what you did, but.
Yeah, so we had groups helping. I think our Honor Society helped with Cup of Grace, which is a group in Spirit Lake, and I think other areas that create meals for people who can't afford them or get to them. So they did that. We had people cleaning up trash everywhere throughout the school. We had people at our own school scraping gum off of bleachers, doing all that stuff, the things that these two talked about. So we had people everywhere.
That's exciting.
That's over half the student body for the first time. That's amazing.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
We picked up a lot of trash.
Oh yeah. Definitely. I mean, you'd walk, I don't know, here to the front of the highway and you could get a whole trash bag to do that for as far as we did. That was amazing.
Well, thank you.
Very cool.
Much appreciated.
Thank you guys.
Board Chair Thompson, would it be okay if I let John Brown go?
Yes.
And then
yes.
good evening, everyone. You know me, Anna Scheck, John Brown Elementary Principal. I am so excited about the possibility of offering a summer jumpstart program for our students. And tonight I have with me Renee Vanick back. She's our Title I teacher, so brought her for moral support and to help answer questions because we have a little secret to share. She and I have been kind of dreaming about this for quite a few years. So we know our school has a lot of vulnerable, high poverty children who really struggle academically. And as you know, we've been a school that's been identified as a targeted by the state as needing targeted support interventions. And so we have been working really hard, and I think I may not have said this last time when I was here, but we are a school in reform. Because our kids really are struggling academically, and we're working really hard to really increase student achievement. So the possibility of offering a summer jumpstart to them with extra dollars was like, yes, let's do this. I mean, Miss Vanek asked me, I heard jumpstart at a admin meeting, I don't know, March, February, and my ears just perked up. And then Patty Morrison mentioned it to the title teachers, and so Renee's ears perked up, and we're like, so, come on, what's happening? And so we asked again and again, and Dr. Meyer says, put together a proposal. So I'm very excited to share this draft with you. So what we are asking for and what we're hoping for is that we could invite Tier 3 and Tier 2 students. So thinking about multi-tiered systems of support, MTSS or intervention program. Tier 3 students have intensive academic need, and Tier 2 are more strategic. So we have those students identified with our analysis of our data, and we watch them closely and progress monitor them, and we know exactly who we are going to invite. We just had our end of the year data day collaborations, and we at each grade level we identified the top, we call it the top on our spreadsheet. It's Tier 3 and Tier 2 kids, and so we've identified about 15 kids per grade level. Most of them have a little overlap of need between English language arts and mathematics. So we are hoping to invite these children for 3 weeks in August, Monday through Friday, from 8:45 to 11:45. We would just like to keep it to John Brown students. Those kids entering grades 1 through 5. So those who are moving on to the junior or the middle school. When are we going to make that transition with the middle school?
It already changed for next year.
Yeah. So those kids, well, the middle school will have to address their learning needs. But we are excited at the possibility of addressing the learning loss, because last March when everything closed down, these Tier 3 and Tier 2 students were the hardest ones to engage in remote learning, and had probably the biggest loss when they came back to school in September. So our ideal, this is just our wish list, and we're so excited about the possibility. So our ideal staffing would be 1 teacher and 1 pair per grade level, 15 students per class. And I know that sounds kind of low, but these children have very high academic needs.
It's not so. That's perfect.
We think it's perfect too. So we just think it would be able to differentiate and have like 7 kids working on one task and 7 on with the other teacher, and doing some center approach, differentiation, let's see. So that's our ideal. And then we just know that teachers will need some planning time. And so we think Wednesday and or Thursday the 29th. So classroom preparation, academic planning. We do, I have another secret dream for John Brown, although it's not too secret, and the whole staff knows, and Renee and I share this dream, that we do think our students would do better with year-round school. And so we'd like to just take data and be reflective, and we don't know, but we want to be mindful and intentional about thinking about what is it that we're doing, what's working, what's not working. So I would expect the certified staff to keep a reflection journal and think about those wins. And at John Brown Elementary, we have a practice of doing what we call a grow and glow at the end of every big activity. So for example, student-led conferences. Tomorrow we have field day. we will send out a grow and glow, and people will put down, what did we learn, what do we need to do better? And we refer to those when we do our planning the following year. So to help us, maybe just dream about the future. What is it that we're learning? What can we do better if we get to have this opportunity again? So let's see. This is one that is really near and dear to my heart. As you know, one of my personal and professional mission statements is to really nurture a joy of learning. And in this case, I really want to nurture a joy of literature and reading and having a rich vocabulary environment. And the research shows that children who come from families of high poverty enter kindergarten with a deficit in their language and their vocabulary. And it's quite amazing, the disparity between the children from high poverty and more affluent, middle class and higher. So we want to have a really rich literature environment, and to address the learning loss in reading and in mathematics, phonics, numeric awareness, vocabulary, comprehension, fluency. But what I know that Dr. Pasley attended a State Department Zoom meeting on learning loss, and I don't know exactly where they're getting their data. Wasn't it from the NWA? Yes, I couldn't put that together, but that's the test that we administer every now and again when the state chooses us.
Nope.
Where's
That's the math.
Oh, okay.
That one's the.
So I wasn't sure exactly where they got the data, but the data they said is that they saw more loss with math.
Mhm.
But there's a lot of research to say that if a child is not doing well in reading, they're not going to perform well in math. So we really want to make sure we're covering all of this area. We really, to address those 5 areas of reading. We want it to be minimal technology. We want it to be very interactive, very high engagement. We don't want to use a lot of worksheets. We don't want to do drilling of skills. We want it to be concrete, hands-on, very manipulative. We might use iReady a little bit for the pathway, just for a bit of a centers approach. But other than that, it would be minimal technology. So that. Absolutely got to support that math learning loss. John Brown's traditionally, our ISAT scores have shown that we are very weak in math, and we are working hard to address that all the time, and working on our professional development as teachers to learn how to do a better job of instructing with math, and we have a lot to do there. So here is our proposed schedule. So using the summer meal program, that they would enter at 8:45, and I've got to work out some kinks because I believe that the program is delivering 1 grab-and-go meal a day that includes the breakfast for Wednesday. Because they're not doing 2 services a day, they're only doing the 1 service a day. So we'll figure that out. We really want to encourage attendance. We don't want to use the word summer school because it has a stigma attached to it. We want to use the words jumpstart or summer enrichment, but we really want to make sure that kids are excited to come. And so that first half an hour, we want it to look like summer camp with some fun games, crafts, activities, songs, just to get them there. And like, they don't want to miss that first half an hour because that's the best part. And so I'm really excited. We already have some staff who said they were interested. And like today, when I had an all-staff meeting, I could see one of our parapros saying, I'll play capture the flag with them. And so that's super exciting. We want to really integrate, making sure that students are responding to what they've read and writing. We will go outside and have some recess, and math will be very hands-on. And this will be read aloud time where the students are engaged in listening to a chapter book. So the research says that they can listen to books read that are very sophisticated. Maybe it's hard for them to read independently, but they certainly comprehend at a sophisticated level. And they would walk out with their sack lunch. We wouldn't actually eat their lunch at school, but they would walk out with their sack lunch. We really, really hope that we could culminate the 3 weeks with a field trip to Gizmo. Are you familiar with Gizmo? It's a STEM interactive place at North Idaho College. The reason we like to put that there, we feel like this is a carrot for families, and it's just gets them excited about STEM. And we just feel like we have to have a little bit of a carrot to draw them in, because I think these families are more reluctant about stuff and about school. So how do we get them in, and how do we get them to participate? So that's our hope. We have some ideas for other enrichment opportunities during that first half an hour. Our librarian is willing to work 2 days a week if we could, because I'd like them to pick up a book every day and take home whatever book they want, whether they're going to read it independently or whether it's going to be read to them. So that whole turnover and how important that is that they're getting that rich literature. PE, music, STEAM, public library. This guy apparently has a bus that is, do you know about that, Lindsay? Is it a STEM thing?
The public library?
Yeah,
or the
district. Yeah.
I know that they have like the checkout stuff, boxes and stuff. Is that what it is?
No, it's a little different than that. It's with the community library network, and they have a whole bus that comes and they do STEM activities.
I think I just saw on the Facebook.
I know what you're talking about.
Have you seen it?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Do you know about it?
Yeah, we do it. So I work at a summer camp in the summers, and we do it with our campers at camp. And it's a bus. They come, they get like a snack, a water. They get a book. Like they usually will just give the children like a book, and then they do a fun activity.
That's very cool. So that's just something that we're hoping to draw in. So we're hoping first about a maximum of 75 students. We would have some on an alternate list to maybe dip down deeper into the tier 2 kids, but that is our hope. We're super excited. If you have any questions for us or for Renee?
Do you think 3 weeks is a sufficient amount of time? Meaning, should it be longer or?
Dr. Myers, like, it might be a little expensive.
No,
That's
it's
what
not
I
the
would
cost,
guess.
it's just, this is the first time we're doing a jump start.
Mhm.
And for families, she sort of alluded to it, for families, the 3 weeks before school starts, we're gonna need to make it really enticing and do have the carrots. And I would rather do something really successfully to start out with than something's too long and then it peters out and
Okay.
it's doing the opposite effect of what we want.
Okay.
In my
Discourage them, yeah. I think it's very exciting.
I know.
And this would be funded with ESSER 2 funds. We
Correct.
have
Okay.
the funds, we talked about it at the budget team.
Yes.
So I just wanted you to know they are there for this exact
Dollars,
purpose.
yes, right.
In fact, the state suggested the jump start, and we put it out there, and this is the only elementary school that has going to move forward with the plan. So hopefully the board will approve it tonight, and she would love to start going with getting families and moving forward with it so she can secure the staffing and all of that.
We haven't said a peep to parents.
Okay.
Not a peep.
Okay.
Yeah, until we get it forward.
I'm actually kind of okay with that because I don't want kids talking and then feeling like there's a stigma that they've been invited.
Right.
Or the opposite,
It's
like,
better.
how did you get invited and I didn't get invited?
Right.
Yeah, they may be jealous that they don't get to go,
Right.
not that
Yeah.
they have to go, you know, that.
I think this would be
Yeah.
excellent.
Any questions?
No, I think
No?
it's exciting.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you for
welcome.
this opportunity.
You're welcome.
You know,
Okay. What's that? Oh yeah. Okay.
look at you.
Bye, sweetie. Are you bringing up district safety or your presentation?
Where are we now?
I know.
We bounced a little.
Which one would you like on?
Well, if we fall back in sequence, it's just, or you can go.
Mhm.
I have no problem either way.
I will let the sex go.
Good evening, Chairman Thompson, board, and Dr. Meyer just walked out. My presentation won't be quite as energized and excited as the principal staff. You could feel her enthusiasm.
Yes.
Amen.
Her plan, but when we had our board training with ISBA, one of the things that was an aha for us was that each at our regular board meeting, we should have a safety update, which we've not been doing, so moving forward we will.
Perfect.
So this is the first. Just wanted to give you an update on where we are with our armed guard hiring. So the interviews have been scheduled for June 17th at Twin Lakes from 9 to 4. We have 6
Wow.
really outstanding candidates.
Excellent.
Great.
I know, I'm very excited. Our teams will include parents and students, teachers, counselors, administrators, our current armed guards, our law enforcement partners, and I would really love it if we could have 2 board members, one to sit on the formal panel and one to sit on the informal panel.
I'll be there.
I thought you might be, since these are your schools that you represent, but
Yes.
I didn't want to make an assumption.
No worries.
So if any of the other 4 is interested, in just let me know and I can make sure I put you on this.
Okay. Okay.
Any questions about this process?
It is pretty extensive.
It's very extensive, and so the sooner we can, that's why we didn't really wait very long to get the interview on the books, because there's just a lot that happens before they're actually hired.
Right.
And then later tonight, you will see an action item on the agenda that I'm asking for board consideration at our district safety task force meeting at the end of May. Our armed guards and our nurses brought to us a concern and then a way to be proactive in how we address that concern. So we are currently seeing as a region an increase in drug overdose because especially among teenagers, because they are either purchasing or being given opioids that are laced with fentanyl, and they are unaware of that. We actually had a Coeur d'Alene student who died of a drug overdose. There is a drug called Narcan that all of our law enforcement officers now carry in their vehicles. It's a nasal spray, and they are asking permission from the board to be able to have doses of Narcan in the nurses station in our secondary schools. When I asked what the pros are, we could save a life, so that's important, but what are the cons? As far as administering a medication, are there concerns or things that we need to know? The good news is that we can administer Narcan to somebody who's unconscious and unresponsive, who maybe didn't have a drug overdose and if there's something else going on, and there are no negative side effects to that. So there's no danger in administering Narcan to somebody who maybe is unresponsive for a different reason. I don't know all the details of medically how it works. I do know that the medicine in Narcan actually attaches itself to the opioids, which lessens the reaction that the person's having, which keeps them at least responsive until medical personnel can get there. We can get it through a grant, and so it would be at no cost to the district.
Have we had any incidences where somebody had experienced an overdose in the schools?
We have not. But I think the Coeur d'Alene death kind of was a big red flag for people. And since it won't cost us anything, their sense is that we would just rather be ready to act if we need to, rather than wishing that we had it and not having it.
Do we know what the liability on the district would be regarding administering Narcan to someone and it going being adverse?
I asked that question.
Okay.
And according to the nurses, there are no adverse with whatever this is. They have no documented adverse effects. They said it's very safe to give, and then the schools are covered under the Good Samaritan Act. So if we are acting to save a life, we are not held liable for that. I can certainly,
I could have our lead nurse come to the next board meeting if you would like to have a little bit more of I am not a medical person. I just was asked at our meeting to bring this to the board for consideration. So
Okay.
if you are feeling like you want more information, I don't feel like I can answer your questions, maybe the medical questions to the depth that you're looking for.
Well, it's just the Good Samaritan is kind of twofold, in the sense if we go down this path and then we're not able to, are we set up for liability? And then if we do go down this path and we do it and something goes awry, then there's definitely liability. So I'm just concerned about that. Not that I don't want to help someone in that situation. I just want the district protected for those that are going to be in place, which would be the nurses and the armed guards.
The one thing I guess I would just say to that is we have EpiPens in our schools, and when people have an allergic reaction, they get the EpiPen. I think it's kind of along that same line, that vein. And so Nurse Judy will be able to tell you the liability issues probably a lot better than I can. I don't want to give you wrong information.
Okay.
So if you want more information, I certainly can reach out to her and see if maybe she can attend the next meeting with me and we can talk together with you.
That'd be great. I'd appreciate that.
Would you like us to forward questions to you?
If you have them ahead of time, that would be wonderful.
Okay.
Because then we could be prepared at least to answer those, and then others may come up as we're talking.
Okay.
But Nurse Judy definitely is probably the most knowledgeable when it comes to this.
Okay.
Board Chair Thompson? Yes. I think maybe we should also get the district's attorney, I'm sure she would have just a statement on that as well.
And I'd just like to know where our insurance stands on this.
And Mr. Wallace would be able to follow up. So we'll write this down for follow-up on those.
Perfect.
Yeah, I-Current would have, we could contact them, I'm sure other districts have done it.
Okay.
Would give us, their perspective from a risk management point of view.
Perfect. Okay, that sounds great.
And that's all I have for tonight. Do you have any questions for me about anything safety related?
No,
not right now.
Thank you.
So I will put General Thompson on our list of people for the interviews, and then I'll wait to hear.
Okay.
The second person.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So wonderful student presentation. And then, so we had a follow-up that the board requested on the boundary line adjustment. So we had an email from that Board Chair Thompson and I received from the district's attorney. The surveyor, I just want to update everyone, the surveyor is working. They're actually located in Rathdrum. They're working with Coeur d'Alene and our school district to get the survey done as necessitated. The bond indebtedness, Eric Carringer will be providing verification that we're remaining within our statutory limits, but we have a lot of, Mr. Wallace has said we have a lot of capacity. This will not be a problem, but we will get a letter verifying that. We will grandfather, which is typical. We will grandfather any families that live in our district that would be transferring into Coeur d'Alene. I think Mr. Wallace said there was 2. So I was gonna say 3, so 2. And we wrote a letter that we will, that will go to the state board that if either of those 2 families would like to remain in our district, they will be grandfathered in, which is what's happened precedent-wise in the past. I need the board's feedback on this one. The next part of her email said it would be helpful if the state board knew this was coming. I know Coeur d'Alene was reaching out to the state board, so just wanting to know if one of the board members or if you would like Chrissy or I to reach out and let you know we're working on this. And then in summary, the last part is that once all of this is done, then she's writing up a draft petition that will go to both boards for comments and revisions. And then both boards will need to approve the final version before it does go to the state. So we're still quite a ways out. The surveyor is what we're waiting on at this point.
Okay.
So is there any questions from the board on this piece?
No, I have none.
No.
I don't have any.
Okay, thank you. Additional follow-up. So one thing that we had that I will keep on is we have follow-up on the feedback loop that Trustee Grissom asked. When the policies are passed in policy committee, how is it working out in the real world? How does it work in the schools? And she would like requested follow-up to that. So two things that we're requesting for the policy subcommittee. Board policy 5260, and this is to the mandatory reporting on child abuse and neglect. And the practice in this district has never been to inform the superintendent, but it is in policy. That has not been practice. It certainly hasn't been the practice since I've been here, and Ms. Sexton said it hasn't been the practice even before. So now that the policy came to light, they have needed to contact me, and they feel like that's impeding it, and I'm not, by state law, they're mandatory reporters, so I really can't do anything one way or the other. And we're asking that this please go back to the policy committee to take out the necessity to notify the superintendent. So we're requesting a review of that policy.
Okay, so I'm just curious, is it when the superintendent's notified that they're saying they've never notified the superintendent? Okay. Okay.
And in all actuality, it should really be the least amount of people that know that, the better. In my opinion, having been a school counselor and principal and superintendent, I feel like it would be best served to keep that at the building level. I don't really feel there's any necessity to tell the superintendent.
So was that recently added?
No, my understanding.
It's just always been there, but
my
just not.
understanding is it's been there. I don't know when it was last updated, but my understanding is it's been there, but it's never happened in practice, even though it was in that policy. So now all of a sudden it came to light and they've started notifying me. It's just really impeding their response time. So I just don't see the need that they tell me about that in that.
Okay, so you just want you don't think there's a necessity for you to be notified when a report has been made?
Exactly.
Because that's all they're notifying you about. Right. Okay.
Now, I will tell you that there's several principals that reach out to me because they want to ask advice.
Okay.
What should we do here?
Right.
I'm not saying they can't call me and contact me. It's not like don't call me, but I don't want to get in the way of the process working. If they have a report, they've done it. I just don't want to be impeding or slowing them down for this. And this was feedback from counselors.
Okay, not a problem. The only other, there's a statement in here that says the supervisor or supervisor's designee shall immediately contact the supervisor or the superintendent or the superintendent's designee to determine which agency shall be contacted within 24 hours. Is that?
By law, they're mandatory reporters.
Right.
So really how our protocol is written is if there's an incident, the teacher, parapro, any staff person would immediately go talk to the counselors because they're the ones that most know how to contact. I think you probably know this, but the social workers aren't really local anymore. There's like an 800 number in Boise. Sometimes you have to get down to Boise.
Right.
So depending on the severity, whether we call law enforcement, whether we call social worker, there has to be some response by the end of the day.
Okay.
So the quicker that we can have that process would be great.
Okay.
Any other feedback from anybody about that?
I think I would just say, oftentimes when there's a situation and a student comes to us, it's not, if they don't typically walk up and just say, hey, by the way, this happened. And so we're finding a lot of these situations are really towards more at the end of the day. And so then we're trying to make a really fast decision of CPS coming to intervene or is law enforcement coming. So having to add any extra steps. And the process, I think, in all the buildings is
the teacher will either come to the counselor or the principal, so we're always in the know, and then we're all kind of talking about next steps. But we really try to keep that information confidential,
Right.
so the more people you're sharing with that with becomes problematic, but it does become pretty time sensitive.
Mhm.
Now, if something happens in the morning, obviously it's not an issue, but it never seems to happen that way. So that, from a principal standpoint, that's the hard part, because then if we need to follow up with parents or anything like that, it's just, we're just delaying that, and now the kid's getting on the bus or they're going home with the grandparent, and so as efficient as we can be, I think is what they're trying to streamline here.
Okay.
So, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, Chrissy, can you put that on for Friday? Okay.
So, and this one is really just a clarification on board policy 5700. This is the new substitute policy, which are, I guess, teachers. I guess inside here it says that there's half day and full day. We needed to specify classified or actually paid an hourly rate when they're a guest teacher or guest substitute. And so it just needs to be clarified. This just came back to me, and clarified that certified staff have half day or full day because they're in salary.
So Chairman Thompson, I believe it's put into that policy.
Is it the second to the last? The board annually establishes daily rate of pay for substitutes.
Mhm.
Substitutes for classified positions will be paid full day or half day.
That should
That's
say
certified.
certified
Okay.
positions.
If you want to add that to Friday, we can take care of it then too.
So I shared with the board that we will have a feedback loop where principals will be looking at this on a monthly basis as we move forward, but we are at the end of the year, so I just sort of reached out to see what so far.
No, this is great.
So I will keep this on standing
Perfect.
monthly report.
Thank you.
I want to let the board know, very big, huge thank you to Patty Morrison for her leadership with our mental health and our connection, our MOU with Heritage Health. I know you know a lot, and I've updated the board a lot over the last several years. We were the first district in the state to have mental health therapy available for individual students and family counseling in the schools, so that it was highly accessible for our students. And now other districts are doing it as well based on our model, which has been good, especially through the COVID. This has created, there's been a lot of social emotionals. The governor talked about it last night. There's been a lot, for families to deal with. A lot of, the LOA folks talked about it as well. So something that we want to let you know, that Heritage Health, with the families that have their, whether it's Medicaid or their insurance, they're offering this summer program. And this is a description of it, and they'll be having some, similar to what Anna was saying about some crafts, and they will have some therapy that will continue through the summer, so that the plans that they're on won't stop. And they have 30 families, 20 to 30, and hopefully they continue. So we did do summer.
The link to that does not work. The Heritage Health Summer Program.
It dumps us to Google Docs that doesn't actually do anything.
Yeah.
Request
Says
access.
We need to access. So just so you know.
Okay.
We have no idea what it says.
Chrissy put that in for me, so she will be able to fix it. So.
Okay.
It's a positive. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, but we have a staff person that will be helping, and the Heritage Health therapist, and they're doing it combined together. So
Is that done here in our district?
Yeah,
or
it's going to actually be at John Brown. At John Brown.
Okay.
And they have some, that flyer will show you kind of like Anna did with the daily schedule, how that will work too. So you can see that.
Great.
And it's nice that we have the free breakfast and lunch, and kiddos get fruit.
Yep. Thank you.
Would you like me to wait or go on?
No, you can go ahead.
Okay.
Unless you want to try. Okay.
The update from Final Site. So we did have one of the board members bring up board policy 8605, which has records retention, and this was brought to our attention that websites are supposed to keep the archives forever, which if anyone wanted to reference this, there's the board policy. But we did we're still waiting for the district's attorney to respond back. She has reached out to the State Board of Education. Still doesn't have an answer from the State Board of Education on how this is, okay, this is in policy, but how is it going in practice and how are people doing it? Well, we did get an update this week from Final Site, which is the company that hosts our website. And we transitioned over so it'd be ADA compliant.
Mhm.
They sent us an email, which I linked here. I copied the email. They do keep all of the updates and all of the archives. So this will be, as long as we continue to maintain that partnership with the hosting agency, then we will be able to keep the archives forever. So I thought that was positive news.
So we're supposed to keep it for forever, and now we are at the mercy of staying with this hosting site to maintain those records.
Well, we can get them. We did this with Power School when we shifted from Power School over to Skyward.
Okay.
Is you can buy the backup piece.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we would, if we did move, we would definitely do that. But we did look into this when we went to the ADA, the new law was passed. It certainly is a lot less expensive to go with a company that does this for several districts. The cost is definitely minimized versus us trying to do it on our own, which we did explore.
Mm-hmm.
Right, but with respect to the policy and the expectations, I think the biggest concern that was brought up by the board was that everything's getting changed, but there's no trail. It's just changed. And so you can't go back and say, what did we just last do? I mean, this is going to be another treasure hunt to figure that one out. So the request was that there should be some form implementation that, I mean, when you have something wrong with your computer, it's my understanding that we fill out a form to tech support, or we send them an email or whatever that says, I need you to do this, and then they do that. With the website specifically, I think if we're going to be changing, there's no reason, and I believe Trustee Grissom spoke to the fact that in the tech industry, it's a norm that there's a form you just fill out and you say, this is what needs to be changed, so that there's a trail that you can show, well, last year we updated the page, or 12 years ago we updated the page. That I think was more of the frustration.
Yeah, we do, and Dane has been since you brought this up several months ago, and I updated the board several times that Dane is doing this. He has kept track of everything. So as far as keeping it forever, talking about the Final Site, they've kept every single change. So we can certainly go back, but Dane is meticulous about keeping track, and he can certainly share a spreadsheet with you if that's, I don't know what format you're wanting to see it in, but I certainly could have him do that.
Well, and it wasn't necessarily me wanting to see what we've done, but just knowing that if we needed to figure out where we have been, we can.
We can do that.
And is Dane doing this for every school is he doing everything for every school?
Well, we haven't started on every school yet, because as I said, I wanted to finish the school year.
Right, I
And
understand
then we're gonna tackle the school things this summer, and he can definitely keep the spreadsheet for each school to show.
Perfect. Okay.
And remember, the building lab techs are gonna be doing this.
Right,
So
you
we'll
mentioned
have a combined spreadsheet, so then the board can certainly see what are the changes that we've had in each school, what's been updated, and as far as also the district website.
Okay.
Yeah. Mr. Wallace, were you gonna say something?
Well, I think we're talking two different things, and it's important. One, the archive is a state retention schedule for records. You don't need to take a change management log, which is like, I've done software updates, I've written software, I used to be an IT director, where you're doing that for other reasons than a state record. The change management log is not a state record and isn't really reference to this policy.
Okay.
Certainly okay to do if the board wants that information, but don't, I guess, confuse the change log with the record. The record is literally what was there that day. Just like if I wrote a memo to Dr. Meyer, that's the record. But if I then kept a log of my daily activities, that's not really the record. Just so you know. And so the state retention schedule, some records are forever, like a transcript, or for 100 years. Some records are only 5 years, some records are only 3 years. So websites, I would think, would have a time frame where after 7 years or 5 years, for that, because that's typical. And I think that's what our district attorney is looking at too, is where does it fall within that state retention schedule?
Right, because it states specifically subsequent changes in content of pages is what's to be kept. So I know
Correct,
she's.
and I would be very surprised if that's a forever record. I would be, like our finance records are only like 7 years.
Right, no, I absolutely understand that. And she did explain that the State Department of Education has a different one than this one. And so she's trying to resolve where our local policymaker for this, that we've been following their draft, where they came up with that it is a permanent record, where the State Board of Education has a different time frame. So she is trying to, yeah. And we can always change this if it comes down to reasonableness, so, okay.
Quick updates, the last day for instructional staff and teachers is June 14th. The retirement celebration breakfast is also on the 14th at 8 a.m. in the gym. Hopefully you can come help celebrate if you're available. You've all been invited, so hopefully many of you can come. The summer literacy, the summer book club that we've done for the last 3 summers starts on June 16th. It's 6 weeks. And this year is Choose Your Own Adventure. I guess it's really exciting, and people get to kind of pick their own path. So we can keep you updated on how that goes. Okay. There was a board question to me about immunizations. I wanted to make sure that here's the ADAPA. There's new exemption disclosure language that's going to be starting July 1, where it needs to be the exemption is clearly outlined on where immunizations are required. It needs to be clearly outlined that there is an exemption protocol in this state, and that's going to be starting on July 1. So we did have communication going out to 11th grade parents because next year seniors need to have some new immunizations. So I put the information there. That will go, has already gone to Latham High School and will go to the other 2 high schools before the end of next week. And then our plan for middle level parents, there are a few things that are required there. That'll go out before the end of the month to the middle level and elementary parents. Unless the board felt like they wanted to wait till after the July 1, the school nurses and the principals are wanting to do that now with their end of the year communication. And then when you go to register, pre-register, it doesn't happen until past July 1 for pre-registration anyway. So that would be on our new forms after July 1. So that's what we'd like to move forward with.
Is there any way to have the new exemption language before July 1 on what we're sending out?
Yes.
Okay. You say that hesitantly.
We can certainly do that. I'm not going to speak for the school nurses. I doubt they would, but it's up to the board. But it does become law on July 1. So we could, and it is already a law that the exemption, it's just
goes into effect July 1.
Yeah, the fact that it has to be boldly on the notification, it starts July 1. So we can certainly do that in our everything going out from this point forward.
Okay, so to assist the schools that want to go ahead and get it out the door, as long as we can be in compliant with what is being required by July 1 now, so that there's no misconception that we're saying you're required to do this.
Perfect.
The exemption form needs to go with it. Okay. So those parents that choose to exempt have their
Perfect. That's what I was looking for, was some direction on that. So that's perfect.
Yeah. I just, with tomorrow being the last day of school, are they going to have that ready to go out with end of the year documentation?
It's not paper, it's electronic.
Okay,
That's
fine. Okay, I just was like, tomorrow is the last day. How, yeah, that's going to be a late night because we're going to have a late night. So.
No, it's not paper.
Okay.
All right, that's what I was looking for. Thank you. This is brand new, it's not in your packet because I just got it a little bit before, but I did want to follow up with you. I just got this from Dr. Clay Long, who's in charge of CTE for technical education for the state. We had a discussion at our curriculum presentation workshop about the CTE curriculum. And you know, if it was dictated by the CTE because it's industry standard, it's a lot different. This is what he said in the parentheses there. They do the standards, they have their committees similar to every other discussion we've had. They do that at the state level with CTE. They create their technical skills assessment, which is their summative assessment, workplace readiness. And then, so the CTE curriculum to get to that point is still approved by the local board of trustees in the same manner that we've already discussed. So the FFA curriculum process will need to continue with the board as we'd already planned. So
okay.
Just letting you know that was a follow-up that I just got a couple hours ago. Mountain View graduation, Trustee Irons was there. Thank you, Trustee Irons. This is just telling you it was wonderful. Krista Bullard, I actually have a video of her, and we have a whole audio of her, and she sings a very pretty song. So you guys can listen to it later, but you can see their standing room only there. They did their caps outside and a balloon release ceremony. It was really nice. And then Mountain View, Lakeland's, that was last Friday. Lakeland's was last night, so this is new to your packet because it was just last night. We were honored as the only high school in the entire state to have Governor Brad Little. So he picked one high school to go to, and it was Lakeland High School. I thought he said it was the best school district in the state, but I might have just heard that in my own mind. So, although she admitted that it was the best district in the state, and she's just moved here, so we're going to take her word for it. It is. See, she looked. So he did do the commencement address, and one thing that was really nice is he talked about, and thank you to Georgia Thompson was there, and she heard him say the work ethic was his number one thing, and then Mr. Derrick talked about work ethic. It was a very strong theme with work ethic. And the only thing that I'll say, and then Board Chair Thompson may want to add, they were so fast last night, they were zipping across, and we were like, slow down, people, and she'd have to stand out like, congratulations, like trying to stop them before they're rushing. So I'm not sure why they were, but a lot of small little petite hands we saw, and people rushing. Those are the two things I noticed this year. So we'll see about Friday, but Board Chair Thompson.
Oh, it was a great adventure and a great class to congratulate on to the next journey in life.
Yeah, and they just a couple of highlights. The senior song, I put the link in there if anyone wants to listen. You can see there is huge how full that is as well from inside the real life. Mr. Chisella is magical in my opinion. I'm tone deaf, so anyone who can sing and orchestrate like that is just amazes me. And then the announcement that there was over $9 million worth of scholarships awarded. They weren't all accepted, but over $9 million were awarded. Highest ever for that class. That's pretty remarkable. So another very positive, and you are going to have to pass it on to your fellow students because you're the only student from Timberlake left. But they, this is the highest award that IHSAA gives, High Schools Activities Association, and we are number 3rd place. So out of all the 3As in the entire state, and there's that darn sugar Salem. Remember the graduation rate with that sugar Salem? No, I'm going to find out what is in the water down there. But this is the second time, well, maybe 3rd or 4th time that this is done. And then Jake Massey, who's our principal at Garwood Elementary. Remember, he was at Kimberly, and that they got 1st place this year, and they were not there. Timberlake High School has been here once before. This is the 2nd time, but I know Mr. Evelyn wants to move up the ladder there. But this is still remarkable. I wanted to point out that it really is based on, you can see it's based on athletics, academics, and sportsmanship. So it's not just academics. Wonderful. Congratulations to Timberlake. Good job. Just to let you guys know, the STEAM Summer Camp, there's 2 free camps that are coming, offered to students. There's AFL, so we did a north and a south. These are the dates. These are all the different things, and you can see these are all of our teachers that are teaching these. These are all of our teachers, classified and certified, that are helping descriptions, Julie Anderson, who is in the ALP, back to ALP now that the 6% holdback's gone. Remember, the ALP is coming back, advanced learning. Oh, it is advanced learning. Sorry, brain freeze. She will be back doing that full time, and she is in charge of both of these. So she's absolutely amazing putting this together. So I think we're full, and people are super excited about this. Any questions about that? All right.
I'm excited.
Oops. And interest-based bargaining. This is on the agenda for approval. I'm just giving you kind of a final update, and if Trustee Kristen was here. But our final meeting was Monday. The LEA vote ratified, 105 in favor to 16 against, which is a great percentage. Thank you to Mr. Bradbury for all of your leadership and work with that. Again, I'm putting in the summary, the revenue projections that we had before. And then we have an update, which were board items. There was some board items that they had concerned about that I've linked in there. Everything that we did to address the board's concerns are in bright pink, just so it's readily, you can see where it is. There was other colors with yellow, the yellow signified stuff, green signified stuff, and turquoise signified, so I had to come up with another color, so it's bright pink. We addressed every item that the board needed addressed in here, but Mr. Bradbury and I are here to address questions if you should have them. And then we updated, which has the little pink pieces, because the turquoise was already there with all of our work this year with the IBB team. Anything that was updated from board concerns from that last piece, I have in the bright color, pink color there. So we can certainly, Mr. Bradbury and I can certainly answer questions now, or we can, when you get to the action item, we can address it there.
Did you skim over the elementary life skills program?
Oh yeah. Okay. Let's go. I'll go back to it. But is there anything on here, or would you like us to be available for questions when it's the action item?
Available for questions when it's the action item.
Okay. So here's the elementary life skills program. I've given the board heads up in several board updates, but the board has asked for this kind of stuff to come to access those links here. Okay.
We can't access those links.
Okay. So
sorry.
It's okay. I'm going to have to explore why that is happening. Because it typically doesn't happen when I share something, so I'm not sure.
Right. I don't know. It just pops up with that. You need to ask.
So I will reach and look at that. But I've given the board a heads up that this is coming for next year, and it's taking the students. We are right now, it's disseminated throughout the district. There are life skills students throughout all of the elementary schools. We're transitioning to a central location at Twin Lakes. Kelsey Badger, the interim SWD director, has met with families. We already have a waiting list because families are so excited about this. Here is the handbook, and here is the program goals for next year. We really could create 2 classrooms. The max is 12. These are developmentally delayed folks coming with life skills and high needs that we have are servicing either in our pre-K program now or throughout the rest of the district. And but I have asked that we start with just 1 classroom and really make sure that is working well before we add a second classroom. So I guess long-term planning, we'll see how this year goes, make sure we do our grows and blows. To Anna's point, that's not really what I call them, but Anna brought that up. And then plan to add a second classroom if it continues where we think it will with the parent interest and the number of kiddos available. But that would probably transition to 2 classrooms at Twin the next year.
If it's transitioning, where is it being held at right now?
These kids are disseminated throughout the whole school, right, the district right now.
So we're doing life skills at every single school?
Right now, yes, they are. They're integrated into K-5 classrooms and then also in PK. So the PK kids would typically go to it's a district program that's housed at Twin Lakes. They would typically then go out to their home schools and go to kindergarten and home school. And then other life school kids that are in right now are K through 5. They would, and then we have a life skills program at the middle level here at Lakeland middle level. And then we have a life skills program 9 through 12 at Lakeland High School. So we will have a K-12 program once this is put into place, which will be good for our families are excited about it, and it'll be good for kids.
So this is just the elementary life skills program.
Yeah.
So this is just for the elementary students okay.
Yeah, this is just this is for next year, elementary life skills, which is K-5.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you have a question?
If it's going to be a growing program that's at our local elementary school, the only concern is that it's going to outgrow the school's intention, which is to be an elementary school. And I know that our location over by the Chartwells that was developed and designed for the special needs. They have their recess equipment, they have everything there. And I don't understand why we keep going away from that and putting them in a regular traditional elementary school when we have a building that's actually designed for that.
Well, it's actually not designed for that. It is the pre-K outgrew it, and some of the playground equipment, there's one piece of playground equipment left that's there, but it's not adaptive. It's not and Kelsey, if you're on, I'll let you chime in. She said she would be on. It's actually not designed I think they just used that spot. It's definitely not, if you go over there, it's not designed for a life skills program at all. Not at all.
Okay, but I believe
and another piece of it is they need peers, and they need gen ed peers to be able to be model peers. So these type of programs are designed to be inclusionary inside of the school. That's why the PK is there. And it's not good for kids to have them in a separate program. So educationally, these programs, the motivation is to be around like peers, playgrounds, recess, lunch, sometimes reading time. They intermix, and it's an inclusionary program. Kelsey, are you on?
Yes, I am.
Can you address that as well, please?
Yeah. Good evening, and thank you, Board Chair Thompson. So Dr. Meyer just hit that. The whole point of this program is for them to still be integrated within their general population peers, and for them to still have a general education teacher. I do not want a program that removes the kids from their homeschool and removes them from general education peers. That means that like the special education teacher would be their sole teacher, and they wouldn't have a gen ed population to communicate with or social interactions. So this is, like I said, or like Dr. Meyer said, we have 21 identified life skills elementary kids in our district that need more specially designed group instruction where they can have similar peers be able to do therapies, especially speech and language group therapy, to work on those skills, as well as still be in their classrooms with their gen ed peers. So isolating them in a completely different building is not a philosophy that I would like to go with.
Okay, but you're taking all the kids from what you stated as homeschools, their regular school, but now you're taking them all and just putting them together in Twin Lakes, correct?
Yeah, and that is correct. So their new community will be Twin Lakes, and so we'll be able to move forward with that moving forward. There are a couple families that have been in their homeschool for their whole K through 5, and so they wanted to stay in their homeschool, and that's totally an option. Just moving forward, I would like this to be an option for families that they know that there are kiddos that are super severe or really intellectually delayed, have an option for their kiddos to fit in and have a community of similar peers as well as typical developing peers.
Okay, and Twin Lakes meets all the federal requirements for this program? Is that correct?
What do you mean by that?
Are you talking about physical facilities, or are you talking about
the physical facilities?
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, our preschool's there right now, and that has some of these kiddos that would be coming from their preschool.
Okay.
yeah, and so absolutely.
Okay. Those were my questions.
Okay. Any other questions?
Nope, I'm good.
Yeah, so this will align with the district's philosophy. K-12 with life skills will have a program at Twin Lakes K-5, the middle level at Lakeland Middle School 6-8, and then at Lakeland High School at the life skills program 12. So that'll be a good thing for our life skills program. And again, we do have that second waiting list already, and the capacity to do a second classroom, but we'd like to just start with one, make sure we have all the bugs worked out, and then move forward. Then we talked about that. And then the last one is just the board workshops, still wanting to get, we've completed all these workshops, and we really need to set one for plant facility levy, Mr. Wallace, that also, it's expiring, and we need to determine what's the plan with the board would like moving forward. And if we want to set up board book training, if there's anything else board would like. Any questions?
Nope. We do need to add on there Robert's Rules of Order for that, for trainings or workshops, I should say.
Okay.
All righty. Presentations. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So moving on to action items. The first action item is you need a motion regarding the 2021-2022 budget.
Is this to approve the budget?
So moved.
Hang on there, Rob. Yeah, it's to either approve, deny, or modify. The motion needs to be to either approve it, modify it, or deny it as presented. So.
I'll second that.
But someone needs to make a motion to either.
He did. He said so moved.
As presented.
As presented.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
I'll second that.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Next is the 2021-2022 interest-based bargaining agreement. I need a motion regarding that.
I'll move to approve the interest-based bargaining agreement as presented for year 2021-2022.
All right. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. The next item is the REACH program for the 2021-2022 school year. This is a consideration of approval of the REACH online program for the 21-22 school year. I need a motion.
I move to approve the REACH program for the 2021-2022 school year.
I'll second that.
Hearing a motion in a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Next item is the speech language pathologist assistant job description. Are there any questions or comments or discussion on this by anyone?
Is this a new position?
Yes, we discussed it last board meeting.
Okay.
And I was concerned because some of the job responsibilities were listed as qualifications.
That would explain that. I wasn't here for that meeting.
Oh,
So
that's
why
right,
I was
you
like, huh?
That's right.
And those
Yeah. It is a
minutes
new
weren't,
position.
yeah, quite.
I'm a little concerned about the qualification number 2. It states applicants may never have had a license as a speech language pathology assistant revoked as part of a disciplinary action and shall not be found by the board to have engaged in conduct that would constitute grounds for disciplinary action. I think the qualification is simply that they need to have an active license, and that the license has never been revoked due to, well, it doesn't say why, but it's never been revoked, and
due to a disciplinary action.
Yeah, that that's never been placed on disciplinary action. If we can clean that up and maybe make that a couple of different qualifications, that'd be great.
Ms. Badger, do you understand her feedback?
Yes, thank you.
Just making sure.
So we can table that? Yep. And okay. Next action item is funding for grades 1 through 5 Jumpstart program to address learning loss. We need to approve this for the funding of this program. This would be okay.
For you.
Okay, got it. Yeah. So the purpose of approving this is giving the go-ahead for the funding and to make sure that the program gets off to a great start.
So I move to approve the funding for grades 1 through 5 Jumpstart program to address learning loss for the 2021-2022 school year.
I second that motion.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. I would like to table the Narcan for emergency usage in schools for further information. Okay, the next item is the Timberlake High School and Lakeland High School football equipment usage. It's my understanding we need to approve their usage for summer camp. Okay.
I move to approve the usage for Timberlake and Lakeland High School football equipment.
I will second the motion.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Okay, the next action item is the iReady diagnostic assessment for learning loss. Now we're approving this.
Asked at our curriculum presentation and workshop last week, the board
Right.
Asked that even assessments come in front of the board, so they're asking for approval from the board for this to be diagnostic assessment.
Okay, okay.
I move to approve and allow the use of the iReady diagnostic assessment as a supplemental tool in classrooms.
I second that motion.
Hearing a motion in a second, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Sorry, my screen went blank. Next is the adoption of new policy 2240 regarding class size. You need a motion for that?
I move to approve new policy 2240 regarding class size.
I second that motion.
Having a motion in a second, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Next action item is the update to policy 4130, which will be numbered 4260, records available to public in accompanying form. Is there any further discussion on this? I should pass that on. Okay, I need a motion.
I will move to approve the update to policy 4130 to be numbered 4260, records available to public and accompanying form.
Second that motion.
Hearing a motion in a second, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Next action item is an update to policy 5300, which will now be numbered 5290, political activity staff participation. Is there any further discussion on this item?
I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
The final sentence in this policy talks about that the no district employee, let's see, I'll read it specifically. No district employee may work on election, political campaigns, ballot measure, or issues dealing with private or charitable organizations or foundations during the workday. It talks about ballot measures, but it also, so above it defines what ballot measures are, and they are includes but not limited to bond and levy elections. It seems silly to say that no district employees may work on ballot measures during the workday when we need that from the superintendent and the CFO when they're working on levy documentation, or also that the clerk of the board has to receive election documentation from candidates. So that would be working on a, so I think that this wording needs to be more appropriate in this policy.
Be cleaned up to say advocating for ballot measures instead of just working on
it, yeah.
There is work.
Okay.
Yeah, they have to. I mean,
that's
that's
a great
not,
point.
yeah.
It's a great point. Yep. Okay, so we'll go ahead and table that. Then the next item is a new policy 5330, employee electronic mail and online service usage and accompanying form. Is there any discussion on that policy or form?
No.
Okay, I need a motion.
That's fine. I will move to approve the new policy 5330, employee electronic mail and online services usage and accompanying form.
I second that motion.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Next is the annual review of policy 2700, high school graduation requirements, and 2700P, high school graduation requirements procedure. No, it's being brought before us. It was reviewed in policy committee and no changes have been made. So we just need an approval because nothing has been changed.
For the annual review.
For the annual review.
So, but it's, our little description here says that Lisa will speak to updates on social studies standards.
That's right. Yes. Because what has been changed does not require a change to the policy, or what has been updated.
Gotcha. So it still falls within the policy,
Yes.
but just an update on it.
I did want to make sure that the board was aware that the social studies standards have changed quite dramatically at the state level. And the secondary high school department, social studies department, has worked together. And in looking at the way the standards are written now, there's a little bit more latitude as to when we can teach what, and when they talked in their professional expertise voices about what is best for student learning and what really do we want kids to be able to do when they graduate from high school. We really want them to understand U.S. history at a pretty deep level, so they understand where we've come from and where we've been, to help them be good citizens moving forward. And what we have found over the course of the 30 years that I've been here is that we teach U.S. history in 5th grade and then 8th grade and then 11th grade, and each time they have to start over because the kids have no retention of anything related to U.S. history. And so the social studies department is planning on 7th grade social studies will be world history 1,
which is ancient times to Middle Ages. And 8th grade will be World History 2, which is Middle Ages to Cold War. And 6th grade will focus on world geography to help set this foundation for world history. And then in high school, they, as a junior, they will take a full year of US history, and then in their senior year, instead of doing CWP, which is current world problems, they will have a 3rd semester of US history. So it's very concise, shorter window, and they will have that foundation of world history set for them so that they have a better understanding of how that all plays into the US history. For our students who take AP history, or the dual enrollment US history 111 and 112, they would have to take that senior US history because they would get that full 3 semesters of history in that one school year. And that did not require a change to our policy, but I did want the board to be aware that we changed the kind of the trajectory of instruction.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
So we need a motion to approve the annual review of policy 2700 high school graduation requirements and 2700P high school graduation requirements procedure.
So moved.
So moved.
I'll sit.
Okay. Okay. Hearing a motion and a thought out second. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Next, I need a motion to approve policy 4120 procedure to address concerns to be renamed uniform grievance procedure. This policy has not been updated or revised. It is in the process with legal counsel, but we do need to change the name. And that is all this motion is for.
I move to approve the renaming of policy 4120 from procedure to address concerns to be uniform grievance procedure.
I'll second that motion.
Hearing a motion in a second, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Next, the last action item is the returning certified staff contracts for the 21-22 school year. Is there any comments, questions, or discussion on this item, these items?
I don't have any.
Stipend still. Okay, I have a question.
Brooks here if you have.
Okay, on the stipends, the per diem contract amount just seems off with what's in the negotiated agreement.
So you had mentioned, okay, so the base amount, those are within the negotiated amount. There's the base contract amount, and then there's a shadow schedule. The shadow schedule is, we are required by state law that anybody that is on a professional rung can be paid no less than, for this year, it is actually $42,999. So our main salary schedule does not show that, so we have to have a shadow one until our schedules catch up with each other. This is part of the career ladder. And so I have about 22 people that's on the shadow schedule. Now on the certified staff stipends, those are for the bachelor's and the master's stipends, and those have been a part of the negotiated agreement for quite some time. And we didn't even negotiate on those amounts this year, so they remain the same, and that is on the salary schedule. The difference between the three is you have your bachelor's 24 stipend that has been $500, and then we have 2 different columns for the master's. The master's 36 is for a grandfathered staff, a lot of veteran staff that were in that column. that intent is for that column to fall off eventually so we can get closer, you know, to the career ladder structure. And so the BA 60 people are mostly master's people as well. So the difference in those amounts have to do, like if they're in BA 60, is so, and they're only getting the 2,800, it's so they can catch up to the MA 36 stipend. And so then the MA 36 people are just like, I think it was like 1,100 or something.
Okay.
So I don't know if that makes sense to you.
It does. It makes a lot more, it makes a lot more sense now.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I need a motion to approve the returning certified staff contracts for the 2021-2022 school year as presented.
I'll move to
Say second.
I second that motion.
Hearing a motion in the second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. That concludes the action items. Moving on to discussion items. We do need to determine a date to interview for the clerk of the board position. Any suggestions? Oh no. Okay, maybe I can go back. Here we go. Alrighty then, let's see here. I'll pick a date and you guys tell me if it works for you.
I just was opening my
calendar. It's Monday, then we have the 24th. So I would say now, Randy, this, when we do interview for the clerk of the board, it is, it's kind of a 3/4 of a day process.
Okay.
It's a panel interview.
Okay.
And we kind of, since we have a few applicants, it may take a little bit longer. I do think it's normally slated for like a full day.
Okay.
So what would work for you? Rob, do you have any days that for preference to do the interviews for the clerk of the board?
I'm just thinking here, probably not on Wednesdays.
Okay.
I'm good with any other day of the week, but Wednesday, I don't think I wouldn't be good on Wednesdays. I started something another commitment that happens every Wednesday. So.
Not a worry. But I really need to get different fingers.
The 22nd?
On a Tuesday?
Mm-hmm.
Would that work for the district's calendar?
I mean, I guess, yeah, let's look at the district calendar and see.
You mean the boardroom here?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, easy.
There's nothing going on that day.
It's something that can be moved.
Okay. Okay, so we'll go ahead and plan for the 22nd, Tuesday, June 22nd to do interviews.
That'll work for me.
Okay, perfect. Okay, wait a second. Oh, sorry. There we go.
Oh,
okay. We have for discussion the ISBA call for legislative priorities. I'm not sure.
So I placed this agenda item on here.
Okay.
ISBA every year
gives a due date for local school districts to submit possible resolutions for the upcoming legislative session in the next year.
Okay.
And so I wanted this on here. You got an email as well, I'm guessing, to my SBA, but that due date is July 31st. If trustees have anything that they were thinking that they wanted to bring to the session.
Okay, so we would just respond to ISBA's email, correct?
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you for putting that on the discussion items. We have a first read of new policy 2120, which is program evaluation and diagnostic tests. This is a brand new policy for our district. Policy committee did review it. And there wasn't really much that needed to be revised or changed. Okay. Does anybody have any questions on that? On the policy itself?
Nope, I do not.
Okay. I'm gonna guess Rob doesn't either. Next item is a first read for an update to policy 2140, which is student and family privacy rights, and 2140F, student and family privacy rights consent form. The highlighted yellow is new language that was added to the policy. And there were just some minor corrections to this policy. Under the cross-reference, the highlighted red policy numbers are ones that we're working on implementing. They're in the same
Gotcha.
process right now.
Okay.
Yeah. We don't currently
So they're
have
not
them.
complete.
Correct. And then I don't think on the form, oh wait, no. I think the form's there. The form didn't get uploaded.
Oh, and the consent form?
Yeah, there is a form that goes along with it.
Oh, I was thinking there was the two, but not, one's the old one. The
Yeah,
current one. And
yeah,
then
the current
proposed
one. Yeah, I didn't catch that either. Then our next, Chrissy will upload those for us.
Okay.
But then the next first read is an update to policy 2520 curricular materials. We went kind of back and forth. There is new language that's been added in yellow.
Okay.
The green was our old language, which sort of paralleled the first paragraph in yellow, but the yellow seemed to be a little bit more
concise.
Yeah. Okay. So we went with that. The next is the first read or update to policy 2530, learning materials review. This is just basically, we added the uniform grievance procedure to tell people where to go to figure out how to, if they have a grievance, how to file it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just reworded the last sentence. So it's a pretty short policy with minor changes. Okay. And then we have a first read for new policy 2540, selection, adoption, and removal of curricular materials. This is a brand new policy. We did make some changes. The selection and adoption parallels policy, I think 2520. Yes, it parallels 2520. It didn't exactly parallel it. So we changed the language just so that it's very concise.
Okay.
We do have a first read and update to policy 2570, use of commercial video recordings, and 2570F, parental movie opt-out consent form. This one we did spend some time on. Basically, there's a lot of new added language with regard to educational exemptions for movies. And then bottom line is, if a teacher's going to show a movie in their class, it's not for entertainment purposes, it's for academic purposes. So it has to match their curriculum. There has to be a teaching element to it if they're going to be using it. And then, of course, the ratings and the consents. Any questions on that one? Nope. Okay.
Makes sense.
The next one is a first read of update to policy 3255 student dress. The model is actually, I believe, the policy we're going with. Yeah.
Is the ISBA model, yeah.
Yeah. There's added language in there that wasn't there before about accommodating for cultural, religious, or ethnic differences in dress and grooming, as long as it doesn't materially or substantially disrupt the educational process. And then we did add some guidelines for what is expected with regard to dress. We had a lot. So there was some significant modifications to this policy.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any questions on that?
No. No.
Rob, do you have any questions on any of these?
Nope, I'm following along though.
Oh, I believe you. All right.
Is he trying to convince himself?
All right, so that concludes discussion items. Is there any input for future agenda items?
Nope.
Okay.
No.
Then everything else has been moved, tabled, removed from the agenda. All right, so that concludes this meeting. We are adjourned. Thank you. You're welcome. It's 8:22.
I'll talk to you guys Monday then?
Yes, thank you, Rob.
Thanks, Rob.
All right.